Snowy Lake Tahoe, California, home of the 2019 Spartan World Championships. Over 40 countries representing, sending their best athletes to conquer this 13-mile mountain beast course. I'm David Begita along with Kevin Donahue. And Kevin, last year we saw this race come down to the wire with Jonathan Albon just squeaking it out over Ryan Atkins. So what's going to happen this year? Will Albon defend his championship, or will Ryan Atkins finally win that elusive title?
Well, after being a four-time runner-up, Ryan Atkins is starving to win his first World Championship. And he's proven that when the weather gets worse, he performs better. So he must be salivating over these conditions today.
Now, Lindsay Webster has proven unstoppable here on this course, but Nicole Mericle has been nipping at her heels all year long. So who holds the edge today?
Lindsay Webster definitely holds the edge with these snowy conditions, the frigid colds, and those really slick descents. But Nicole Mericle has the ability, the speed, and the grip strength to challenge her, but she's not the only one. Rebecca Hammond, Faye Stenning, and Miriam Bissett all have the ability to sabotage Lindsay's quest for a World Championship three-peat.
Well, the weather will be a huge factor today as well, and with more on that, the third member of our broadcast team, Steve Hammond.
Well, Mother Nature has already turned this very tough course into an absolute monster. This is going to be amazing to see how the athletes are going to adapt and overcome with these freezing temperatures up top. We've got to swim. We've got grip strength obstacles that are covered in ice up there, and the descent is going to be monstrously tricky. We're going to see how they do. It's going to be amazing. Back to you guys.
Thanks a lot, Steve. And back here on the start line, the best in the business, ready to do battle out here on this beautiful mountain course here in Squaw Valley in Lake Tahoe, and you can see the apprehension, the excitement, an absolutely gorgeous venue. And speaking of Lake Tahoe, North Lake Tahoe is a mountain paradise that naturally elevates all of life's moments, is the perfect training ground for everyone, from pro athletes to leisure adventurers. With its high elevation, varied terrain, and endless opportunities to get your heart racing, challenge yourself and soak in majestic scenery in the heart of the Sierra. Surrounded by crystal blue shoreline and towering mountains, North Lake Tahoe is the perfect venue to connect with nature, clear your minds, and uplift your spirit through all seasons of the year. Visit GoTahoeNorth.com to plan your trip today. And there you can see Robert Killian, four-time podium finisher at this venue and proud Luminox wearer. He's going to tell you a bit more about that.
One of the things you do learn in the military is to have a very strict and regimented schedule. I think time management can make and break you in any field. With Luminox, I never have to worry about that. No matter what's lifestyle, I'm out there working out. I mean, there's just so many different options depending on what you're doing. And the best thing about it is you never have to recharge anything. So it's a lot of my, GPS watches or active watches, I'm like, I'll go to grab it and like, man, I didn't charge it up. So with the Luminox, I never have to worry about that. Never have to worry about it going dark. The luminance stay bright for 25 years. So it's awesome. I mean, it's spot on.
And that is the men's start line, and the racers are off. Look for a few certain men to move their way to the front of the field, namely probably Ryan Woods, Robert Killian, and a few others. They like to set the tempo early, right, Kev?
Well, when you're talking about setting the tempo as well, as you notice in this race, there's a lot more athletes wearing jackets, wearing hats. Yesterday, it was shorts and t-shirt weather. Today, they're having to bundle up a lot more, going to have to make so many other intricate clothing choices due to not only the snow, but the cold water that they're going to be hitting later in this course. So clothing options are going to be a critical choice here today for all these men.
Now, this first road right up the mountain, there's a major climb that's going to take them miles up to the highest point of their run today. The longest climb is the first one. There'll be a second steep climb about 8 miles into the course, and then they downhill and flat through the finish on this thing today. And that's Peter Zizek. He's one of the European athletes, one of the better racers in Europe. Look for him to try and make his mark. He has not raced a lot of these American and North American athletes that we so regularly see.
No, they don't. And as you can see in the background too, the snow line, as they start getting up higher, the snow is going to get a little bit deeper. And that's just going to show you how much colder that is, as Aaron Newell now is in second place right behind Peter.
So you can see Mark Batres sitting in the third position, and just creeping up in front of him in the white cap, that's Robert Killian. Ryan Kent looking with the Post Malone haircut right behind him as well. That's your leading five.
Anybody that could go Post Malone and pull it off, more power to him.
And you can see Ryan Kent has been looking to redeem himself. He had a rough go of things in the last couple mountain races, and then he was running very strong in West Virginia before an incident in the tire flip kept him off the podium. He was in second position at that time. We can see a few other faces familiar. That's VJ Jones in the left, Logan Broadbent in the orange just next to him. And then behind, Johnny Luna Lima next to Jonathan Albon, and Ian Hosek in the green. Albon's in that yellow. You can also see Ryan Kempson just behind Luna Lima. It's star-packed field.
And this is one of those races where, this is a hill, it's a gradual grade going up. It's not steep enough where any of these guys are going to power hike, but it's just steep enough where it makes it very difficult to run for extended periods of time. And then you hit an obstacle like this, doesn't seem like much, but completely breaks their rhythm.
Yeah, the rhythm breaking is exactly what this is doing. It's also forcing them to a muscular anaerobic effort in the middle of trying to be very aerobic as they run up this hill, which can challenge the muscle to get back up into that tempo as well. As you can see, Aaron Newell right now is setting a great pace with Robert Killian. I spoke with Killian just the other day. He said his goal was to put everyone into stress early. He was speaking specifically about Jonathan Albon. He said, I'm not going to let that man take one step in front of me today.
That was his strategy the last 2 years. Robert Killian took it out and was in the lead the last 2 years at the bottom of the mountain before the second climb, and always blew up, though, on that second climb. So it's going to be interesting to see, can he hold that pace if he's going to go out that hard? And another guy who's been going out hard in every single race is Aaron Newell, and he has not been able to keep that pace. So right now, this looks pretty dangerous to me as they enter the snowfield.
Now, Newell is a bit newer to the sport, but he's been rounding into form. He's an incredible rock climber. His grip is great, and he's now become one of the best obstaclists in this field. What we'll see from him is he takes a lot of risks to move very quickly through some of the more challenging or more failable obstacles. And this overhead view is just stunning. It does not show you the steepness, the pitch of this hill, but it's incredibly challenging, and yet these athletes are really flying up it.
And this hill is really slick. What you can't see underneath that is all wood chips. So if the snow isn't bad enough, once they get down into the wood chips, their feet are sliding back. So every take they step, they're actually losing a lot of power, which is going to fatigue them immediately.
So yesterday we had athletes run the Open Beast course, and that course was slightly different than what you'll see today. Some of the changes, besides just the snow and weather conditions, the 25-degree cooler temperatures, which does take a toll on the energy expenditure, is also the sandbag carry has been replaced with a double sandbag carry at the top of this mountain. Also at the bottom, there's an additional second sandbag carry at the 13th mile, just to add insult to injury.
Yeah, thinking about adding insult to injury too, Robert Killian has run a plethora of races this year. Every U.S. National Series race other than Seattle, and a North American Regional Championship, and he did not podium once. It's the first time in his career that's ever happened. And then to come out today and have these savage conditions makes it for a stage where, you know what, if you do not do well, it's almost like a lost season for him.
You know, at the same time, this is just a couple of years removed from Robert Killian being the only athlete who had been on the podium of every National Series event. And some people have been saying, maybe Robert Killian's lost a step, maybe he's fading and edging towards retirement, but he's been defiant, arguing that, no, of course, that's not happening to me. I've just been a little banged up, and now he really does think he's in prime form for this specific race.
There's a fine line, though, between denial and actually having it, be something where, like, yeah, you could actually come back. But today, maybe we'll find out a lot about that. Another guy who was having an awful season was Woods until the North American Regional Championship.
Yeah, Ryan Woods had the time penalty in his first race of the year. That cost him second place. And he then followed that up by missing a spear in his second race early on in the first mile, and had a leg injury as well, a hamstring injury that had him remove himself from the third race. He just didn't have the season he wanted. That's Ryan Atkins. Talk about someone who's had an amazing year after amazing year. Every race, probably the most consistent North American racer we have seen.
So you mind if you win, we split the prize?
Just in front of him, that's Chris Bob Brown. He's one of the best ultra runners in the world. He actually ran the ultra race yesterday and won that race, and is back today running the elite race as well. So an absolute crazy man out there. As he said, 30 miles for me isn't really a long run, so it's not a big deal.
And if you're looking at the power he's running with, how those calves are flexing as he goes up the snow, and he just took the right side all the way just so he could pass some of those slower runners on his left. That's incredible after the effort he put in yesterday.
And you're seeing a separation. Now, this is the legit separation of contenders from pretenders on the opening climb, because everything comes out fast, and now already these gaps forming. The one man that never panics early, though, is Ryan Atkins. You'll see him every race methodically tick his way further and further up towards that lead.
You just mentioned that separation. Right now, Ryan Atkins, I feel, is giving up too much separation to those top guys. I know they're only maybe 100 yards in front of him, but he's been fourth in this race, as we preluded to. Second in this race 4 times. In every season that has happened, he's let guys run away from him too soon, and then he's had to close so fast and just wasn't able to catch him at the end. 2 years ago, it happened to him with Cody Moat. Last year, it was against Jon Albon, where it literally came down to about 45 seconds. So he needs to make sure he keeps the leaders in this race close enough so he doesn't have to put in a Herculean effort right at the end.
And you can see he's one of the few athletes power hiking right now. Make note of that. When we talk about the difference between running up a hill and power hiking up a hill, the power hike may not be quite as fast, but we talk about diminishing returns. You're running just a little bit faster, but you're expending so much energy. And Ryan is a master strategist. He knows that over the course of this race, it's a long day. He's got plenty of time to reel these guys in. He wants to stay comfortable.
For his height, he has tremendous stride length. And if you notice, look at the length of his strides, how much ground he covers with those power steps as opposed to the other guys that are running in front of him. They're doing these short, choppy steps that are only gaining minimal ground, and he's actually gaining in the power hike.
The other difference is what muscles are being taxed when you're running uphill in a very steep incline and you're leaning in. You're running on your toes. Your calves are working incredibly hard. And wiping those out early can lead to cramping, can lead to fatigue, can lead to problems with your downhill running later.
And if you notice that heavy breathing too, that was the heavy breathing of one of our cameramen. It might have been ultra running sensation and former Spartan Pro Team member Chad Trammell, who has joined our camera crew today to get out there. He just took second at the Leadville 100-mile ultra marathon, which is a very prestigious ultra race. That just shows you the kind of talent we have on the media side here with our cameramen out there with these athletes.
That race was just 6 weeks ago that he ran that. He said he had to reteach himself how to walk for the next 2 weeks or so afterward. But Leadville is one of the most challenging ultramarathons in the world. It goes over peaks that are 14,000 feet high. It's an absolutely insane race. As right now, the lead pack is the creme de la creme of runners in this field. That's Ryan Woods up in front. He dominated the West Virginia North American Championship Series race. The North American Championships race. Running away from the field and said he was never uncomfortable. Just behind him, that's Robert Killian, 2015 World Champion and 4-time podium finisher at the World Championships at this venue. He's the only one who's been on the podium each time. And with them, last year's World Champion, 2014 World Champ, Jonathan Albon. He's also a trail running World Champion from this year and a sky running World Champion from last year.
And Jon Albon is about 5'10". He is about 148 pounds. In a race that is going to have these men and women going into the water at around mile 4, you wonder if he has enough body fat to keep him warm throughout a race like this. But Jonathan Albon was a former British military officer. He's also an avid skier. He met his wife on a skiing trip in Europe. He got married to her and then moved to Norway. So a lot of the races he does are in conditions just like this, sometimes when it's days where it's like 20 hours of darkness. So as thin as he is, and as cold as it is today, he is not as suspect to the weather as a lot of other athletes.
If you look at his stride and the way he runs, he glides more than just about anybody out there. It's just very smooth. It's comfortable. Ryan Atkins refers to him as a mountain pixie. He'll go out on a 4-hour run, eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and then back on another 4-hour run. I don't know if it's peanut butter and jelly, but it's good sandwich. And then back out. He said all day this guy's just running.
And then we have a good look at Aaron Newell there in the blue with Johnny Lunalima trailing right behind him. Aaron Newell's got an interesting story. Aaron, at age 17, he lived in the Adirondacks in New York, got lost in the woods, had to sleep out there in the freezing cold for 24 hours until he was rescued the next day. So this is a guy that is used to and has put himself in situations where he was miserable and survived. Once you have something like that happen in your life, and then you're put in a position like this, it just doesn't seem as bad because you know you could survive it. He's a guy, like you said, he's been on the scene for not too long, but he has so much gravitas and confidence that, you know, you really pull for a guy like that today.
Now, in the back right here, you can see Johnny Luna Lima just making a pass of Peter Zizik. And Luna Lima was your winner in the Utah Super, a massive mountain race. And just before it, the Big Bear Beast, which was probably the most brutal course of the year. He's an excellent climber, but he is the best in the field when it comes to descending. So even if he gets to the top of this climb without the lead, everyone in front of him is scared knowing he's running behind him.
He could, one of the few people that could control the race from the backside, because they have to push so hard in front of him to make sure they have a cushion when it comes to those downhills. But one thing we haven't seen with Johnny yet is how he could downhill in the snow. Those two courses in Big Bear and in Utah, very dry, arid conditions, and it was beautiful days. There wasn't even any mud. So when you're adding those slick conditions with the rocks and the snow, you don't know how he's going to react after that.
And again, Ryan Woods sitting here in first position looking very comfortable. He enjoys setting the tempo in these races, making sure that he dictates the terms of that race. And just behind him, Robert Killian, again, who said, I am not going to let Jonathan Albon get a single step ahead of me in that race. That's his strategy for today.
Well, he had that strategy last year and the year before that too. And when it got down to the bottom of the mountain, he either had problems at obstacles such as the tire or just couldn't outkick them on the climb. So as hard as he is working now, I still have to hold a grain of salt because I just don't know if he can maintain his pace, because history tells us he can't.
Especially given the year that he's had, the struggles that he's had. But it does look like he is running the best we've seen him run all year so far. And the same could be said for Woods. Both of these guys struggled this year. So to see them having this kind of start at a race of this magnitude is very encouraging.
And getting back to Johnny Luna Lima, as we're seeing Ryan Kent charging up the hill as well. When it comes to Johnny, it's kind of like a pitcher in baseball, right? The other athletes, they've seen him twice now. It's kind of like a batter who goes through a pitching rotation. Once he sees that pitcher twice, they kind of know what their game plan is. They know what kind of pitches they're going to throw and what sequence. So they kind of have a book on Luna Lima now. So when it comes to a race like this, they know what to do beforehand to not let him get away. So it's interesting now to see him getting this far ahead and how they react to him later.
Well, it makes a lot of sense that these athletes that are afraid of his descending would hit him in the mouth early, put him on his heels, not just develop a gap, but really make him hurt a bit. Because if you can hurt him early, maybe his descending goes away a bit.
As Robert Killian now jumps in front of Ryan Woods in a very precarious spot. You see that drop to the left with snow and rocks? That was a very risky pass, and he pulled it off smooth.
Well, you can see the trail leveled out a little bit. It was just not quite that same pitch, that same incline, and Robert took that as an opportunity to put a little speed on there, maybe gap the field a little bit, because in a race like this, with the level of competition they have, every second counts.
But that is also sending a message. When you pass somebody on the single track that early, it forces Ryan Woods to say, hey, I'm either going to block you from passing me or I'm going to let you go. And it kind of gives you a beat as Ryan Woods slips there a little bit as they're jumping that creek. It gives you a beat on where they are at mentally, and that shows that Ryan Woods did not like it, and he just took the lead back.
Okay, so the one thing that I think is important to note at home as these athletes are running up the mountain, at the base of the mountain, you'll have weather conditions that are more reasonable, and as you get further towards the top, things are going to get pretty gnarly, pretty crazy. Sometimes when you get to the top of a peak like this, it's almost like being on another planet. The weather conditions can be different. The wind is more intense. It might be snowing. It can be significantly colder. It could drop 10, 15 degrees on that climb up. That's going to affect how they handle their apparel. If their jackets are open right now, they're going to have to re-zip back up, make sure their gloves go back on for the grip-based obstacles at the top. And, of course, it just absolutely can demoralize you at the top of a climb.
Yeah, as you're watching this, and if you're wondering why, hey, if it's so cold, why are these guys in tights and wearing these very thin windbreaker jackets? If they wear too much clothes, they will overheat and dehydrate, and they will blow up. So it's a delicate balance of how much clothes do I need to wear to keep me warm, but not too much that I overheat. And like you said, there's going to be that balance of when to take something on and when to put it off, and how long to do it.
Well, Robert Killian still picking his way right behind Ryan Woods. And you can see that terrain, all those rocks sticking out. It's not smooth, easy terrain to run either. This is nasty stuff, and now a lot of that rubble is being hidden by the snow. So you step in to that soft pack, and it's easy to roll an ankle. And you know, don't be surprised if you see some athletes come up with some nicks and bruises that have impacted their race and their running ability.
Not to mention, as they go up in elevation, the cold just gets colder. Your body can't circulate oxygen as well as it can at lower altitudes. So as they're going up higher, it's going to make them even colder as they go up.
Well, again, we got a real good view of Robert Killian's backside right now. He's trying to hold on to Ryan Woods, and we know that somewhere right behind Jonathan Albon, last year's champion, is lurking, possibly the most dangerous runner in the field because his ability to go both up and to descend is world class.
As well as his obstacle proficiency.
Extremely high obstacle proficiency, with the exception of he does not love the extremely heavy carries.
What is going to be interesting, too, we have not seen a Spartan race at this level with these level of athletes with conditions this cold with this much water. So the dexterity of their hands when they come to some obstacles are generally more simple for them, are going to be much more of an adventure today as they approach the monkey bars.
That's the monkey bars right here. Pretty standard, but there is a lot of undulation, and they are fat grips. As you can see, Robert messing with his gloves right now, adjusting so that he can bare hand this thing. And Ryan Woods keeping his gloves on, but going with an overhand, underhand grip. You can hear the wind right now ripping through, and you know that's impactful as you can see their jackets really blowing. So this is just another piece of adversity to face, a little bit of headwind, but also it just can chill you to the bone, one of those big gusts.
All these athletes have different gloves. Some choose to run with them, some choose to run without. The ones that do, some of them are cottony, and they could actually be very slick on those bars. Ryan Woods maybe had something that was a little more tackified, so he kept them on. Killian maybe didn't as much. So you're always going to get more dexterity and tackified hands with a bare hand than you do with a kind of a cotton glove. So for him, he took it off, but I'm sure he immediately put them back on.
Well, Ryan Woods looks incredibly comfortable as he's beginning to stretch out a little bit of separation between himself and even Robert Killian right now.
And you know what? You're always as good as your last performance, whether it's bad or whether it's good. When you're coming off the North American Regional Championship where he blew everyone out of the water, you come into this race with nothing but confidence. So when he's going up the mountain right now, he feels like he can't be touched as Killian tries to hang on.
And actually just behind Robert Killian is Jonathan Albon, so he's managed to stay within about 2 seconds. And those two might be connected for a little while right now as Ryan Woods is trying to win this race outright on the initial climb.
And that's a great spot for him to start running away. As they crested the mountain a little bit, they're into this lull before they start to climb again, and that's a spot where Ryan Woods could really take off in his flat terrain, as Johnny Luna now is starting to pass Peter Zitzka and hang with Aaron Newell, who's running really fast right now.
Now, Luna Lima is an excellent flat ground runner as well. He's just got incredible speed, which helps you on that descending. But coming up shortly, they will encounter a few obstacles, including the bucket carry and the spear throw. And as Ryan Woods heads over this box-looking obstacle right here, please note that's actually a bridge to allow the runners to run over the top. Later, when they approach from the other side, they're going to go underneath this thing. It's kind of gnarly as they head down the first major descent there.
And that box gives you a great indication of actually how much snow fell. So I look about like 2 inches up in this point.
And again, Jonathan Albon looks very at ease, as is Robert Killian, each of them looking like they're just out for another run. As that's Peter Zizik still holding off Johnny Luna Lima and hanging tight with Aaron Newell. This is your top 5 right now. This is a very solid top 5.
Aaron Newell, one of the few athletes out there that doesn't look like he's wearing any kind of windbreaker either. I wonder how that's going to affect him later as the wind starts to whip, as you see it on Robert Killian's jacket right there.
You can actually hear it now. You're beginning to hear that wind pick up a little. And as they crest this peak up ahead, it's going to become possibly a little bit aggressive and torrential with that wind. Still just ahead, Ryan Woods, not too far, about 40 yards ahead of Robert Killian. This is nothing to worry about yet. This is still maintaining contact. As long as you have good visual sight of the guy in front of you, you're still in that race.
Yeah, this is not a race where they're going to be rushing at obstacles. Obstacle completion is going to be at a premium. A lot of these obstacles they get to, as you see Johnny Lunalima again with the leg mitts, I'm going to explain what that is in a second, will take their time and actually catch a breather at the obstacles. So what Johnny Lunalima was wearing on his hands there, it was a neoprene kind of grommet. It was a mitten. So when they go in the water, it kind of keeps their hands worms in the water. It doesn't absorb it that much, and they could actually pull the top of it back so they can have bare hands at all the obstacles they need, and then transition back into a mitten as they start to run to rewarm their hands.
So they can maintain that circulation, but also keep the dexterity of their fingers for obstacles. It's a very clever design by Deanna Blake, who was an excellent endurance obstacle racer in her own right from down in Australia.
As the years go on, we have so many cool little innovations in Spartan race and obstacle course racing, so it's interesting to see how the athletes use them. A year ago, you would have hardly seen anybody wearing those mitts. Today, I'd say probably half the athletes use them, as now Ryan Atkins is getting a little bit of nutrition there out of his bag and running along Ryan Kent like this looks like almost like a training run.
Now, it's important to note, not only is Ryan Atkins moving up, but he looks incredibly at ease right now as he's taking his first nutrition of the day. That's a dry bag that he's got with him right now, and that dry bag is going to help him maintain, I think, keep his food clean and dry, but also possibly if he has any other attire with him.
What the athletes do at a lot of these water obstacles as a strategy is once they hit the water, they strip off their clothes. They'll put them in a dry bag to make sure they don't get wet through these obstacles. Now, the rule is they have to carry everything through every obstacle. Once they get out, they put their dry clothes back on and try to regain their warmth, as now Robert Killian is approaching the first burpeeable obstacle, really, at the Z-Wall, which is going to be very slick considering, if you notice on those blocks, there is still snow on top of them. They have not been knocked off yet.
Yeah, so this is going to add a little extra element of difficulty to the Z-Wall, as Woods had no problem with it. He came flying off that thing, but a little bit of snow on there is the last thing that you want because your feet are already covered. You can see the snow packed into the bottoms of his shoes for those first couple strides before it shook out on the road. You have snow stuck to the bottom of your feet, so your feet are slick, and now you've got snow on the grips themselves, so your hands are struggling as well. Could create some problems in this race.
If you saw his arms flailing side to side there, that wasn't some kind of cute thing he was doing. He was running downhill so fast. He was throwing those arms out, kind of like a fishing boat when they throw out those big arms to maintain their balance. That's exactly what he was doing as he was running down that hill.
And Ryan Woods looks like he's picked up exactly where he left off in that West Virginia race at the North American Championships. Just taking it to the field early and not letting anyone feel like they have a chance.
Well, everybody has a chance in this race until they hit the water, because when they hit that water, anything could happen. Bodies will go into cramps on people that never cramped before in their lives. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they react after hitting water that cold in these kind of brutal conditions.
And not just the brutal cold, but also this brutal double sandbag carry that's looming. So first, when we get to the top of this climb, athletes will have to go through that first bucket carry, followed by bender, and then a spear throw, which we always know can shake things up. And once they make it through that, there's still a double sandbag carry and then the swim. It's a very nasty sequence at the top of this mountain.
As we're watching these other athletes now, that is Mark Batras, who's on our right there in front of us with the orange hood. These Z-walls are at every point are slanting down the hill. With those slick conditions, it's very difficult to hang on. I'm surprised more people aren't falling off at this point.
Also, Ryan Atkins was so tight right behind Batras right there. It's surprising he didn't pick a different lane to go on, but you know, we made it through incident-free, hopefully. We see Batras off there and really flying again, arms out, letting the hill, letting gravity take him down. That's how you go fast without putting pressure on your quads.
Oh, absolutely. People would think, hey, you're running down this hill so fast, you're out of control. That's actually saving energy and saving those quads from burning out later.
So we just got word Atkins actually came through the Z-Wall right there in 12th place. That is really far back, but again, if anybody knows what they're doing and how to strategize this race, it is the slow starter Ryan Atkins, who loves to finish fast.
But unfortunately, that strategy has forced him to finish second in the last 4 races he's running, as well as 4 World Championships. So he needs to pick it up early if he wants to be a contender.
Yeah, and right now you're seeing some contenders. This is 2nd and 3rd position overall. Robert Killian and Jonathan Albon, 2 world champions, Albon with 2 titles to his name. Killian trying to earn his second today, and up ahead, the North American champion for 2019, Ryan Woods.
Isn't it great to talk about a field where every single person you talk about has some kind of championship belt to their pedigree?
The accolades that we have here, this reminds me of just a couple years ago when we had a swim where we had 4 world champions in the water at the same time, and we don't have as many of those athletes in the field today because we don't have Hobie Call and Cody Moat running, each of whom has won 2 world championships in their own right. But these are 3 of the best racers in the world, and there are a number of other upper echelon racers. I would say we have Ryan Atkins, who's a first ballot Hall of Famer, for example, possibly the greatest racer of all time, who just doesn't have that title to his name, that Spartan Race World Championship title that's been eluding him.
He's been a U.S. National Series champion, and he's been a 4-time runner-up at this event. He's the reigning Spartan Ultra World Champion, but this is what really separates the creme de la creme, is the Spartan World Championships right here at Squaw Valley, North Lake Tahoe.
And that's the start line of the women's race. And of course, you know we have to look out for Nicole Mericle taking it out fast. She loves to dictate the pace. And given how well she ran in West Virginia at the North American Championships and how that ended for her with a sad, unfortunate cramp and then second place finish, you know she wants to take it to the field early today.
Well, there are 3 certainties in life: death, taxes, and Nicole Mericle taking it out first in any major race we have.
And as they exit under that tree, that is Nicole Mericle sitting in lead position as the hill starts to kick up. And not only will she take it out fast, but she's going to try and hold that pace the entire time as well. She's one of the few athletes that can truly attack for the entire race.
It's going to be interesting how she attacks this race too, because when she was in the athlete conference earlier yesterday, she cringed when they started asking questions about the cold water on top of this mountain. I mean, her face almost went white. So it's going to be really interesting to see how she adapts to that as we go along. And you see Ryan Atkins has adapted. He's opened up that jacket to let a little bit more air in so he doesn't overheat.
Yeah, Ryan Atkins and Ryan Kempson running together, both looking under control and comfortable, right where they want to be early on, not trying to let the other athletes in the front dictate their race for them. But you're right, Atkins does have that jacket open. It's a smart move. You'll see that if you watch any Tour de France, a lot of times the riders will open their jackets up for the ascent, and then on the descent, as they're moving down that mountain, and all that wind is blasting them in the face, and they get cold, they're not working as hard, they zip that thing back up, they tuck in tight, and they try and keep that body heat in.
Well, somebody working hard is right in front of us. That's Mark Botras, who's not been in front of Ryan Atkins at this point in any of our big races this year. So he's throwing down a really good performance at this point.
Great start for Botras, and he's an excellent marathoner. The question is whether Botras is going to be able to maintain this for the entire race, because it seems like each time we have a critical moment in a race, he just hasn't been able to put it all together in those big races. Now, closing into the top of the mountain, this is Ryan Woods, and he's going to be approaching the bucket carry momentarily. And as he gets up there, we have his split for the top of the opening climb right here. 31 minutes and 15 seconds as he approaches that top of the mountain.
And you can see this is a welcome sight for the athletes. The sun has popped out a lot more as they approach this next set of walls. The more sun they can see in this race, the better.
Seems like we've had a lot of walls in this opening climb. Objectively, the goal, just take the legs from these runners the best that we possibly can. And this is the women's start. So up in front, large gap already. That's Nicole Mericle. Behind her chasing, you'll see Faye Stenning will probably be one of the first over the wall. Also with her, Rhea Coble and Lindsay Webster.
Rhea Coble, who's usually very, very comfortable in the mountains, has had a rough season herself. She didn't perform well down in the North American Regional Championship in West Virginia. Was actually in tears after that race, questioning whether or not she still had the ability to run. And a lot of these athletes, they have very high highs, and sometimes they have these very sad lows. But recently, it seems like she's rebounded from that, and she's ready to get out there today and compete.
Well, this is the start of the bucket carry, and now you are legally allowed to shoulder load that bucket. That's a recently added rule, and this allows Ryan Woods to just start running this thing. Just behind him, Coming into the bucket carry momentarily will be Robert Killian and Jonathan Albon. They had a dead even split just now as they crested the mountain. For more from the top of the mountain, we've got our very own Steve Hammond.
So before 3 miles in, we've got Woodsy just behind us in the lead, making the bucket carry look easy. It is wild up here, guys. It's cold with a wind chill of about -19.
All right, thanks a lot, Steve. And as you can see, not just cold, but extremely windy, and that wind will play a role in what comes next because we have a spear throw coming up after this bucket carry.
-19 is the kind of weather where you see professional football players cringing on the sidelines, and we have 150 to 160 pound thinner athletes out here crushing it in these conditions.
I said it was going to be like another planet when they got to the top of this mountain, and it's like they left Earth and these athletes are now on Mars, and it's the dark side away from the sun right now. They're just going to be taking a beating up there.
Yeah, there's a reason why there's a clothing brand that talks about the side of the mountain being much colder than the others and how brutal it is as you see that wind whipping on Robert Killian's jacket. And a lot of these athletes are using, as you said, that over-the-shoulder bucket carry. And that is more prevalent today and more important today than ever because you've referenced before in a lot of our other broadcasts about that support grip. Well, it's a grip. You have to use it. When they put it on their shoulders, this is actually saving a lot of that grip with so many other tactile, dexterous obstacles coming up that they're going to need to save those hands for.
They're actually going to save more than just their hands. They're saving their lower backs as well because not having to load that weight in front of you means that your spine can stand tall and you're not putting all that pressure on the erectors around your lower back. And that is also being extremely taxed just by running uphill. So now it saves their running as well.
As well as those hamstrings.
All the posterior chain strength and looking extremely comfortable. That was Nicole Mericle with no one else really in sight right now, and she looks like she's out for a stroll.
And Nicole Mericle, again, she's gotten off to fast starts in every single race we've watched, and at some point, she wasn't able to hold on with the exception of this year in Jacksonville and in Alabama. For her to do it here, it's very risky, but you know what? That's the only way she knows how to do it. And every now and then, it might come up for her, so let's see how it pays off.
Aaron Newell was flying on his ascent up that mountain. As you saw Chris Brown behind him, Ian Hosek, a number of other familiar faces. This race is going to have a lot of parity as we go through this thing because there are 15 different guys that have a legitimate chance to win this race and only 3 spots in the podium.
And you're looking at Nicole right there again, she started to overheat, opens up the jacket, and she has those Blegmits on as well.
So coming down the mountain right now, you're seeing Robert Killian. He is running in second position with Jonathan Albon just behind him, and then there's a gap to the chase group. But this is Ryan Woods heading into Bender and then the spear throw.
It's going to be very interesting with the spear because, again, the dexterity of their hands with this cold weather. They haven't even got wet yet.
And this whipping wind.
Yeah.
Crosswinds are not helpful on a spear throw.
No, it's terrible. So not only do they have to fight the elements just with the dexterity of their hands, you can see that flag blowing from right to left. That is going to blow the spears around. It is not like throwing a baseball. That spear catches the wind. It could knock it a good foot to 2 feet to either side, depending how strong it is.
Well, Ryan Woods is over Bender, and now the glove comes off because he has got to nail this throw. And right now, the pressure is on him as the leader. Hit this throw and be away with this thing. Miss this throw, and all this work that you put in is for nothing.
Now the wind is blowing from the left to the right, so he has to make an adjustment on this. He's going to have to aim it almost to the far left of that circle where that Spartan helmet is to make sure it is centered.
And that's a hard miss to the left. He just pulled left. It looked like his arm just crossed his body. And Ryan Woods goes from first place into the burpee pit for 30 burpees as Robert Killian and Jonathan Albon hit the spear throw simultaneously. And now Woods has got his work cut out for him. The gloves are off. He's trying to keep those dry. But now who's throwing first? Probably Killian.
As the wind is whipping,
Killian's got to stick just right down the middle. Killian is off and moving. He's in first position right now. And the question is Jonathan Albon. Looks like he's just missed because he is in the burpee pit right now. Killian just did all that effort to run with these two men, and now he's going to have a 1.5 to 2 minute gap on them as they come out of this pit.
And Ryan Woods, I can't believe what he's doing right now. It's such a rookie mistake. He took his gloves off to keep them. The gloves are allowed to get wet. His hands are now going into that wet mud, and that is going to freeze them up. He's going to have major issues later.
Well, the question is whether or not he or Albon are going to come out of those burpees first, but also how can they run back Robert Killian, who now knows he's free and clear. He's going to hammer for this next 3 or 4 minutes to try and put as much distance between himself and them as possible. The time it takes them to do the burpees and the fatigue state that they're going to be in after those burpees where they don't have the running legs they normally do.
Two other components to that. In the previous years where he was leading at this point in the race, nobody did burpees in front of him, right? And he also saw them do the burpees, so he has a lead. So he could actually back it off a little bit now and conserve some energy because he knows he's got a monster lead at this point.
What a mental lift as you saw Lindsay Webster followed by Ashley Heller and Faye Stenning in that chase group, all hunting this woman right here. Nicole Mericle, who again could not look more comfortable as she stretches away and just seizes a greater and greater lead up this first climb.
And I tell you what poise. She stopped and started walking so she could make sure she could take her jacket off, adjusted it the way she wanted it, readjust her gloves, and still get off running and in the lead as Lindsay Webster is now starting to move her way up the pack.
But Lindsay Webster is not even in second position right now. There's someone in front of her between her and Nicole as well.
I don't worry about Lindsay, though. I mean, she's done this plenty of times where she's sat back in 6th or 7th place and then won a race by 5 to 6 minutes in this kind of field.
Well, Robert Killian has just made his way over to the armor obstacle. Oh, excuse me, that's the Olympus obstacle.
This is actually Olympus. Yeah, armor is armor is going to be right after that.
Immediately after. So Olympus, you can see the big change here is the material that they make it out of. It's no longer made out of just plywood. This is a more slick synthetic material, and you can see his feet are sliding around. So instead, he's going to pin his knees to the wall and stay in nice and tight, utilizing the holes because that's the safest grip to work his way across.
It's a great way to maintain that perpendicular pressure, and these walls are actually steeper than the other Olympus walls. They've had those walls in Hawaii, and I remember doing them, and they're incredibly difficult. And not only that, the holes are a little smaller, and he had to pull the gloves off, as now his hands are exposed as he's touching a chain-linked ball.
So armor here is a chain wrapped into a Atlas stone and carrying it in front of you. This is what we talked about. We mentioned that front-loaded grip for the bucket, how it can tax your lower back. Armor's doing that, plus your knees have to open up a bit wider. You have that external rotation in your groin and your hips, and that can cause problems later on. They'll simulate that one more time when they go through the Tyrolean Traverse later. That external rotation can cause cramping when you're pushing as hard in the cold.
And one of the first things to cramp when you hit cold water are those groin muscles.
Those groins and the hips, those are a tough thing to keep going. Robert Killian is taking a beating from that wind, but he is flying over this part of the course. When you run in the lead, when you're out in front, and you know that you're gapping the field, it's like you have wings on your feet. You can just unleash it, and you just feel free to fly.
He gets in positions like this too, and this is almost like the training runs that he does as a resident of Colorado. There's something about that. You can think about it, an Army Ranger, a Green Beret, he's from Colorado. Now he's running alone in snowy conditions with the wind. There's something very comfortable about that for him and very comforting.
Well, Nicole Mericle, no stranger to this as well. She's been living the van life tour all year long, traveling from mountain to mountain with her boyfriend Aaron Newell, who's actually running an incredible race in his own right. The training seems to be paying off.
Question is, how many of the other athletes are going to be going out and buying vans now and just cruising the country? As we get a good shot of Leanne Wastany right there behind Lindsay Webster. And Leanne has been a contender in every race this year, and let's see if she could hold on and make noise in this one.
Yeah, and you can see Lindsay Webster just not the same engine maybe that she normally has at this point in an opening climb this long. She would have some more separation from Leanne. As talented as Leanne is, we've just seen this from Lindsay Webster. And we were noticing before the race, we know she's had a little bit of a foot problem. There's rumors of a stress reaction in her foot. And is this affecting her? She's been doing mostly bike training for the last few weeks. And this is one of her first runs really since the injury popped up. Maybe it's impacting her. Maybe we need to worry about this a little bit.
There's also the second part of that, which is she's the greatest descending woman in the world. And knowing that we have these big, long descents afterwards, she might be just saving her energy for those.
Now, Robert Killian, everything he's going to do on these grip strength obstacles is going to be very deliberate. Because of how cold it is and his hands are being so exposed, he's been running with them exposed. He's going to be cautious, and that was a really smooth effort through the multi-rig. He didn't take any risks. Men behind him, specifically I think of like an Aaron Newell, are people that we're going to need to take risks to close this gap.
Notice how he didn't do any kind of ape swing on that. He put both hands on each one of those ropes and rings. He made sure that when he went from the crest, the top of that movement, when he was going through the pendulum, there was always two hands on either a rope or a ring, and that is the best way to not fall off. It's bulletproof.
We call that technique matching. When you reach with one hand, grip, and then match with the second hand before extending on. It's a safe, controlled, deliberate, and effective technique. It may not be as fast, but you know, it's a lot faster than burpees.
M&M, matching and maintaining that momentum.
And Robert right here, looking very confident and comfortable as you see his stride is extending and opening up. In these flat sections, he's going to take advantage. He is a very solid flat ground runner. Now, he's said, no, I'm no longer the fastest runner in the field, but he's solid and good at every element of racing. There's no weaknesses in his game.
Every single one of these athletes looks at a course and they have kind of a game plan. With him with this lead right now, knowing that the two people behind him just did burpees, he's probably already calculating in his head, how much time do I need to make up before I get to the final climb once I get back down to the festival area to put a big enough gap on to separate from these people. That's already what's going through his mind, and it's only about 5 miles into the race.
Because it's not just the burpees that they had to do, it's where they had to do the burpees. It's that he had an opportunity to run on flat ground and then coming up a downhill shortly. All of that while they're taxed out, that's an amazing opportunity for him to stretch out a tremendous amount of distance, not just time between them.
While putting their hands in cold slop, their hands may never recover for the entire race after something like that.
It's possible that they don't.
It just starts a downward spiral. Like it's almost like going down the toilet. One bad thing happens and it just opens up the door for other bad things. And before you know it, it's a ripple effect of really bad things. And it could be like that the other way of really good things. As we finally see Myriam Boisset, our athlete from France, who was an absolute killer on the European circuit this year.
Now, Myriam Boisset won the European Championships this year, and you know she's been in the shadow of Zuzana Kosimova, who did not race this year because she's actually pregnant. So we'll hopefully see her back out here. She's a two-time world champion. Robert Killian making his way into the Tyrolean Traverse. It's an upward sloping Tyrolean Traverse, so really interesting. And the rope is thin, and he's chosen again the safe method, the on top method.
Attacking like an Army Ranger, that bottom leg right there almost acts like a rudder. It kind of steers him and keeps him balanced as he hits the bell. And what that does also, it allows him to save those forearms and that grip strength because his own body weight took the brunt of all that weight as he heads into the ape hanger.
Now the ape hanger is interesting. You have to enter this water. This water is much colder than the water that they'll be swimming in later because it's such a small body of water up there at the highest point of the mountain. It's chilling like it's a freezer. This water is just above freezing. He's trying to avoid getting wet, so he jumped up to that first climb. Now he's going to have to monkey bar across this, but he will have to drop into the water at the far side. There's no avoiding getting wet, but he did save his hands for this obstacle.
And if you want to see how cold it must be on those bars right now on bare hands, he had to kick ice off the tarp before he even jumped up there.
Now look again, he just switched from a matching
Very
technique
risky move
to the overhand technique. That shows how confident he is in his grip right now. Incredible effort from Robert Killian. Still the hands stay dry, and he is up and out of the ape hanger obstacle.
And that was incredibly important. Last year when he struggled with the tire flip, what basically cost him the World Championship last year when he was in the lead, he got his hands wet coming out of the ape hanger. This year you can see how deliberate he was not to get them wet, and it's going to pay off for him.
Well, they're probably going to get wet now because there's a barbed wire crawl and it's nasty in there. A lot of slush and water and mud. He's got his hands inside his sleeves. You can see he's trying to avoid getting those hands on the ground. It's a very clever, savvy veteran move, and he makes it into the rolls again. Keeping those fingers inside the sleeves, such a critical move to keep those hands warm.
Yeah, you can't keep him completely unexposed, but the less you can, the better. And using this roll allows him to throw his shoulder and his elbows into the ground as opposed to the palms of his hands.
Well, Robert Killian is out of the barbed wire crawl and headed towards the Atlas stone carry now. So a big lead for Robert Killian, a very excited man right there, and a big lead developing for this woman right here, Nicole Mericle.
This is the furthest in the race we've seen Nicole on a climb leading. So if the other athletes aren't starting to run her down, that's just going to give her more and more confidence for her taking it out strong.
Now, on the Atlas stone now, the rule change that's most recently in the updated rule book is you go around the flag and back. You do not have to do the 5 burpees, set it down, and start running again. So now it's just about the carry.
White balance on my.
And it's important to note here, the dunk wall is not an obstacle in the race today. That water was just too cold to submerge your head under, but Robert is going to have to go up this slip wall. So he's choosing his path all the way at the end, where it looks like he has the clearest bottom of that wall, and he's up and over.
And if you notice the flags, how strong the wind is whipping up there. If they were to enter that water at this moment, it would seriously put a lot of these athletes into hypothermia, and we could have medical emergencies as opposed to people just doing burpees.
So the first part of the descent will be right now as Robert makes his way towards that daunting double sandbag carry, and that's Ian Hosek, who's moved himself into the top 3. Actually, he might be in 3rd position right now. Right behind him, 4th position. That's Jonathan Albon right behind him. And just ahead, we have Tyler Veerman and Aaron Newell battling for 2nd position.
Ian Hosek has been crushing it on the U.S. Mountain Series this year. Has been doing incredibly well until he had a snafu in Big Bear where he missed a turn and it kind of knocked him back a little bit. But he's one of the best mountain runners in Spartan.
It's true, and specifically this type of course is exactly what he wants. He'll be one of the few guys out here today who will legitimately be having a fun time while everyone else is miserable and cold.
He's from Montana. This is what they do for fun. They roll around in the snow and run mountains.
And one thing that was important to note, we did not see Ryan Woods in that group with Jonathan Albon. They did burpees at the same time, and then came through this nasty sequence of grip-based obstacles after getting their hands all wet and cold, and that does not bode well for Woods. We don't know what happened quite yet, but we'll get an update as soon as possible.
Hopefully it's not that downward spiral that we talked about and he could rebound, but it does not look good.
You know, Lindsay Webster is just behind Nicole Mericle. This is still pretty tight. It appeared Nicole was really pulling away, but really she's only got about 25 seconds right now.
And that's just Lindsay Webster, who never looks like she's working that hard, as we see Faith Stenning, who is getting right up into that lead pack right now as well. But Lindsay Webster just doesn't ever look like she's struggling that hard in the race. Sometimes she starts off slow, and then she will smash it at the end.
Now, Faye Stenning has a number of top 4 finishes to her name on this venue. She likes this course. She tends to run her best races at the end of the year, and she's been on really a roll for the last few races.
And she was really coming into her own this year when she got to West Virginia. Unfortunately, she did 60 burpees, which cost her, but she still finished in 4th place and had the fitness to do better. You're going to fail obstacles every now and then, but your fitness doesn't lie. So she's fit right now and ready to perform well, and I know that she's feeling good about her chances.
Again, looking smooth and comfortable through this one little flat section of the course before things kick up, and Nicole heads into the next Z-wall, the next obstacle for her. This is Jonathan Albon. You're seeing him, the back of Jonathan Albon, chasing Ian Hosek, trying to pull him back. They're approaching that double sandbag carry. And that is one of Albon's least favorite obstacles.
There's 2 different kinds of sandbags on Spartan courses too. Some are these bags that are just filled and they're very uniform. And then there is these wreck bags where the sand just does not sit uniform or even. And what it does, it forces you to your back and your shoulders to work in all these funky positions because it doesn't sit well. Robert Killian looks like he got it very well balanced though, and I'd be shocked if he has to put it down. He's got that locked in really well.
It was a crisscross method that he set up with them, one front to back, the other bag over the shoulder or around the neck and hanging over the shoulders to lock it all in place, which is very clever. but some of those bags, all the weight is shifted to one side, some of them are not. So he had the luxury of getting to the sandbag carry alone, unrushed. He could select the bag that he wanted to use.
And most people would think on that double sandbag, the first thing would be the legs or the arms. It's actually that lower back in the core, which is the first thing to start to break down, and then the arms and the legs start to go after that.
Well, Jonathan Albon looks like he is back to his old self. He just blows by Ian Hosek heading into this carry, but Hosek could probably take back quite a bit of distance from him on a double sandbag carry like this. It's pretty long. It starts with the descent and then has a long, nasty ascent. And after it's done, we're going into the water.
And that's when everything's going to get real, is when they hit that water. The question is, could Jonathan Albon make up enough time right here to make a game out of it once he does hit that water?
Well, he's unlikely to carry as fast as Robert Killian. Aaron Newell will probably also put in a pretty strong carry. That's him right there. Up ahead of him, already on the carry, I believe, is Tyler Veerman.
And if you notice, Aaron Newell did throw a windbreaker jacket on, which he subsequently ripped as soon as he got into barbed wire.
Well, Robert Killian has already made it to the bottom of the carry. This is Aaron Newell taking off, trying to give chase. So he is already a full length of this carry behind. That's a pretty significant distance given that he didn't do any burpees.
What's also significant too is Aaron Newell is incredibly obstacle proficient. He has done probably the fewest amount of burpees on the Spartan circuit over the last 2 years and has tremendous grip strength. And so when he gets to these obstacles later with cold, wet hands, it is not going to affect him as much as the other athletes.
You can see Jonathan Albon really struggling with these bags. One goes up on the shoulder, the other one falls down, and if he holds it the way he is in his elbows, that is going to be incredibly taxing on his biceps, on his shoulders. Now he has to put them down, reset, try again, wrap it around his neck. He's losing a ton of time here when he needs to be efficient at this moment.
And loses a ton of energy. Each one of these sandbags weighs 160 pounds, but it's like holding a person. They just don't sit uniform. They swirl all the way around. He's really struggling as another athlete, Ian Hosek, goes by him. And those biceps and shoulders are taking a tremendous brunt, and he needs that for these obstacles coming up after.
Well, we have up ahead, you can see very small in the distance. That's Tyler Veerman and Aaron Newell, and Newell just passed Veerman. And that's Robert Killian to the right, making his way up to the top. That slow death march with the double sandbag.
And if what you're looking at right here is the half pipe for the skiers and the snowboarders. So it goes down to the very steep pitch, and then they have to walk up this narrow side. As they go up higher, it gets more narrow, and there's still a lot of snow on there, which is going to make it a lot more precarious when they get to the top.
Now, while we're here at this double sandbag carry, I want everyone to stop and remember that Ryan Atkins is lurking in the background, because Ryan Atkins is probably the best in the field at this double sandbag carry, if not one of the top 3. And he was in 12th place at the top of the climb. We had a bucket carry where he was able to move up. People missed the spear. Look for Ryan Atkins to be somewhere in the top 5 mix by the time this double sandbag carry is over.
He also has the advantage of being able to look where every single athlete is positioned once he gets in there. As now Nicole Mericle, who has tremendous grip strength on her own, is heading through the seawall. She's maintaining 3 points of contact. She actually picked the side that has a downward slope, which is very dangerous, but she's moving through super quick, hits the bell, and off she goes again.
Yeah, no problems so far for Nicole Mericle, and extremely comfortable giving chase right now. A number of different female athletes that they're not used to racing. We have new faces constantly popping up at the World Championship events.
This is one of our athletes from Denmark being followed closely behind by Leanne Wasteny.
Yeah, so this is Ulrike Evensen. So Ulrike, one of the top athletes in Europe, but she's the first time we've seen her race against Nicole Mericle, against Lindsay Webster, against Face Setting. This is an exciting opportunity for all of them.
No, absolutely. And they have no idea what her ability levels are. We talked about how the other athletes have seen Johnny Luna Lima twice now. None of these athletes, other than Miriam Buisset, has seen this athlete from Denmark.
Well, Robert Killian has finished the double sandbag carry, and he's got a healthy lead right now as he makes his way down the hill towards the swim. He's looking back. He's trying to get a sense of how close is the next guy. But Robert Killian, so relieved to get back to running.
Now this is when the athletes have to start thinking about, okay, how do I transition to that water? How am I going to take off my clothes? How quickly is it going to take me to get into a bag? As Aaron Newell slips, we talked about how precarious it was up there, and he almost went down.
Look at that face. That's the face of a man in complete anguish right now. Absolutely suffering, but he took this opportunity to pass Tyler Veerman, and that gap is pretty significant with a double sandbag carry. That's going to take a while for Veerman to get to the point that Newell's at right now. That's probably 30 seconds already, and he was behind Veerman to begin. A very fruitful double sandbag carry for Aaron Newell.
If we've learned anything about Aaron Newell this year, is that he embraces the suck. He embraces opportunities like this to suffer, and he comes out usually on the better end of them.
That's a steep section of the course. If you're asking yourself, why is the leading female walking right now? It's because that hill is 40% incline, and she needs a moment to adjust, not blow out her calves on that thing, and just keep her heart rate under control to get to the next section.
Killian looking really good. Generally after a sandbag like that, a heavy carry, the strides would be a little bit shorter, but he's extending his legs very far right now. It's a good sign.
Now Aaron Newell has just finished that sandbag carry, and Tyler Veerman should be cresting that hill momentarily, and that is a very ripped up jacket. All those tears from the barbed wire crawl that they just went through, and Newell's going to have to get himself a new jacket, but holding second position right now, a very happy place. If you had asked him before this race, if at the sandbag carry after the top of the first climb, if you were in second place, he would say, I would love that.
And you also got a high five from OCR legend Matt Kempson up there, who's the brother of Ryan Kempson, who's probably waiting for him to come through.
So this part of the course right here, as we head in towards that swim, the water's gonna be about 50 degrees, the air temperature's in the 20s, and with wind chill, we're talking negative still. When they go into the water, it's gonna be cold, it takes your breath away, you lose a little bit of control of your central nervous system, you have to be very calm. And as you come out, and that wind hits you, it can absolutely crush you physically and emotionally.
The energy that the athletes have drained themselves of just talking about and thinking about this swim in the past few weeks has been telling as to how hard it actually is. And you need to almost go into a meditative state when you're hitting that water, because if you're not mentally prepared and in the right place, it will absolutely crush your soul.
We know the race directors were waffling on this all night long. Should we leave in the swim? Should we take out the swim? Is it too dangerous? But they opted for, this is not an open heat. This is an elite heat at the World Championships, the best athletes in the world. And if anybody's gonna go through this nasty swim, it's gonna be them.
Generally there's a rule, it's called the 80 rule. If the air temperature and the water temperature both add up to 80 or above, they keep the water in play in the race. Today, the air temperature was 28, the water temperature was 50. So it was right on the bubble. At a 78, they're like, you know what? This has to stay in for a professional world championship heat.
And again, this swim won't be as cold as the water they hit in the ape hanger. That water was much colder. The dunk wall that was removed, much colder than this water. A larger body of water, it takes much longer period of time for this to chill out and get colder. So this water isn't nearly as bad as what they've already been in. When they come into this, it might actually feel kind of good. When they come out of this, that's when things get bad.
And he did not take off the jacket. He just went in there with all his clothes. He's going to have to wear those wet clothes for the rest of the race. That might be a decision he regrets later.
Well,
because
Ryan Atkins did the opposite. He used that dry bag, he just pulled off his windbreaker and threw it in there, took some nutrition, and he's going a totally different method. Ryan Atkins, by the way, sitting in 5th position right now. Somehow, we didn't even see it. He pulls himself all the way back from 12th to 5th in the matter of a mile and a half. Absolutely incredible effort on that double sandbag carry as to be expected. And now Ryan Atkins back in striking distance exactly where he wanted to be.
And he's in striking distance of a Robert Killian, again, who was trying to save time by not changing his clothes, as you're watching Ryan Atkins very wisely putting it in that bag, because now when he comes out, he can put all dry clothes on now, while Robert Killian is going to be blowing down a mountain with the wind in his face, entirely drenched.
This is a savvy vet move from an athlete who just is experienced in all forms of racing, including most recently adventure racing. You were actually out there with him at the Eco Challenge in Fiji.
I was in Fiji with him at the Eco Challenge where he participated in the race. We can't talk about exactly what went on out there. All I can tell you is that he was out there. And
the race is how many days long?
I cannot even tell you how long it is. All I can tell you, it is a savage fiesta of the hardest things you could ever do on the planet. And
Ryan
just
Atkins
finished 2 weeks ago.
And Ryan Atkins decided, let me do this as my starter to kickstart my World Championships. I could be tapering, but instead I'm going to go race for a week or so.
The things that I saw out there, all I would want to do is go to the movies and watch Netflix for the next 3 weeks. And this man is out here doing the Spartan World Championships in Squaw Valley, North Lake Tahoe.
Well, right now Ryan Atkins is approaching a swim that Robert Killian has already completed and begun running out of. So Robert Killian with a very healthy lead over Ryan Atkins, and you know he's got to be confident about that. When you finish a loop event, a loop obstacle like a swim, you get to come out and see exactly how far ahead of the next couple people you are. He knows Ryan Atkins is not on me yet, but he has had an opportunity to see maybe some of the other guys.
He's looking a little bit like his football and rugby days from back in the day. This is a lot of things a lot of people don't know about Ryan Atkins. He's just such an overall athlete. This guy's done everything. He's actually an incredible unicycler at the same time as well. And here he is heading up into this lake.
That's Aaron Newell coming out of the lake, already done with that swim.
Incredible. If you're wondering why these great athletes have to put on a PFD, it is mandatory. When you hit that water, it can be so cold and you cramp up. If anybody was to go underneath water and drown, it would be a tragedy. So they're all mandatory to have to wear these PFDs. Robert Killian had to, and he's an Ironman world champion.
The purpose of this swim is not to exhaust you by swimming. The purpose of this swim is to chill you to the bone and then make you respond. It's to face extreme adversity and then just power through.
And that represents everything that Spartan is about. And they actually shortened it by about 2/3 this year, but it's probably been the most feared swim we've ever had.
It's an extremely feared swim. You just hear of so many athletes that cramp up either in the water or as soon as they get out of the water, and they go from running, feeling great, having an amazing day out on the course, to just crushed in a matter of moments.
Great athletes, super tough people who are prepared for this that just gasp in agony.
Well, that's Ian Hosek now passing Tyler Veerman coming out of the swim. Excuse me, that's Tyler Veerman and Ian Hosek coming out of the swim. Veerman still in the front. They both have very similar looking jackets right now. But the race is on now because who knows whose legs can respond at this point, being this cold and wet, as Nicole Mericle begins her bucket carry.
Notice how she's adjusting her gloves with just her teeth. She took them off to get the bucket up and then used her teeth just to get that grommet back over her hands to save that from the wind as she goes up the mountain.
Looks
Again,
like her thumb is still exposed. But
savvy veteran move.
very savvy. And again, for Nicole, when you're out in front, when you have the control of the race, the key is to keep the pressure on your opposition while not overextending yourself. So for her, it's to run her race, to maintain her comfort zone, and she cannot relax because the woman chasing her is a two-time world champion. It's Lindsay Webster. She knows how deadly Lindsay can be.
The best thing about a bucket carry and a sandbag carry as well is that once you get to the top, you get to look down and see exactly where your competition is, how far behind or how close they are. And you can also gauge their breathing and their level of fatigue or discomfort as you pass them on the way down.
Now, Nicole Mericle split at the top of the mountain as she reached the bucket carry, 35 minutes and 11 seconds. Lindsay Webster, 35 minutes and 56 seconds. So we have about a 45-second separation between them. Again, nothing to panic about if you're Lindsay Webster, but you've got to stop the bleeding here.
And if you're Robert Killian right now, you're the first person to hit this snowy single track as you're racing down the mountain. He is not the best descender in this field. Albon, Atkins, and Johnny Luna Lima are all better than him. So for him, having to break trail on this snowy descent, he's actually going up a little bit now before he goes back down again, is a very hard thing to do because they're going to have a little bit more broken trail, the snow's going to be kicked off a little bit, and they are just generally faster than him.
Yeah, and the big thing is going to be that most of the descents on this course are not as steep as they were at Utah or at Big Bear. They're going to be much more runnable for the average athlete, and one of Luna Lima's and Atkins' advantages is that they're both incredible at the very steep downhills. That's where they excel compared to the rest of the field. That gap narrows dramatically when the hill becomes a little less steep. It becomes more runnable for everyone. Now this is extremely technical. There's rocks, snow covered everywhere. This is not going to be fast for anybody. But Robert's doing a very good job and taking a few risks, I think, to maintain that lead.
I've never seen him take this kind of risk on the downhill. He is bounding down this slippery slope. He almost went off the trail as he crested around to the right before, but he was able to maintain his footing. If he went down there, it would have been a disaster, but he did survive it, and that's going to bode well for his confidence later on that single downhill at the end.
And just up ahead, we have a little sighting. This is Ulrike finally hitting the bucket carry herself.
Right next to her are Rebecca Hammond, followed closely by Rose Wetzel in the white and red.
Well, it's nice to get a Rose Wetzel sighting in there. Rebecca Hammond trying to pull herself back into that prime fitness she was in before, as we saw Leanne Wasteny also climbing this hill. Rebecca Hammond's been hurt for most of the year. She came back, ran a very solid race in West Virginia, but you know, the question is, can she be herself with the Rebecca Hammond that took second place here last year?
Yeah, Rebecca Hammond was our breakthrough athlete last year. She took second at West Virginia at the North American Regional and was a very surprising second here because we've never seen her in a beast. But we've never seen her in a beast in the snow. But one thing she is mentally tough, and she has great grip strength. So watch for her to work herself back into this race too, especially if some of the other athletes fail.
Now Nicole Mericle heading into Bender and then the spear throw. This is the most critical part of her race today. She's put in a solid effort, maintained her comfort zone, and gotten herself about a 45-second lead. But we just watched Ryan Woods do the exact same thing and then miss the spear. She needs to hit this throw, and she's gotten much better over the last year or so with her spear throw, but this is the most important spear throw of her life.
You could be more right, because Ryan Woods disappeared after he's missed his spear. Nicole Mericle has never been in this point at a World Championship race in the lead. If she could hit this now, the confidence she would have running out of there would be monumental.
Now she took the windbreaker off of one arm, and she might take it off completely. I think the objective there is to not have anything tugging on her as she makes this throw.
And Lindsay Webster is right behind her coming up the stairs. So she's going to see her, and so is Nicole. So they're going to put pressure on each other at the spear throw.
You know, it's a critical spear throw for Lindsay, too, because if Nicole hits this, Lindsay needs to hit as well to stay in this race. This could be a stressful thing, as Lindsay is now going over Bender, and Nicole has not departed the spear throw yet. She's still trying to select her spear.
The spear selection is very important. You have to make sure the footing, the platform you're throwing from is great. If you notice that spear tip is a little bit bent, it might bode her well to straighten it out a little bit. She avoided that and just lining up for her throw and going for it.
Well, she's taking some time for sure, but hopefully we make it worthwhile. As a solid right down the center strike, Nicole Mericle has hit her spear. She's off in first. That's a fantastic sign for her.
And this puts a tremendous amount of pressure on Lindsay Webster, knowing how fast Nicole is running, for her to hit her spear as well with all these other women behind her.
Great start for Leanne Wasteny as she makes her way over to Bender, and is that Rose Wetzel? No, that's not Rose Wetzel, that's Ulrike. Ulrike also heading into the Bender obstacle.
Nicole is off and running. Ulrike is going to the Bender and then to the spear. All these women are going to hitting the spear at the same time, all putting pressure on each other.
Now, we did not get an eye on Lindsay Webster right there. Did she hit her spear? Did she miss? But this is Nicole Mericle out in front. She hit hers, and now it's Olympus coming up.
Well, she's not slowing up, so she's acting as if Lindsay Webster did hit her spear. And here is Miriam running down the hill with the bucket.
Now, Miriam Brissett staying tight with the leader. 46 years old, still doing this at a very high level. That's incredible.
And also rocking pants that she could wear on a golf course and get away with it.
Yeah, hammer pants. You can hear that wind picking up here. This is just such a brutal, desolate environment to be running through. And that's Faye Stenning making a pass right here, passing Lindsay Webster.
That actually is not
Lindsay Webster, excuse me.
Yeah. Lindsay was at the spear already.
Yes, we're going up the stairs towards the spear, but Faye Stenning getting passed right back again.
Well, Lindsay Webster is an icon. A lot of them copy her ponytail.
See burpees happening over there in the corner?
That is Lindsay Webster in the burpee pad. She missed her spear.
Lindsay Webster is on the burpees, 30 of them right now. That is brutal for her and unbelievable news for Nicole Mericle. She's been chasing Lindsay for the whole second half of this season, and all of a sudden, she's going to leave here with a 3+ minute gap.
And there is Leanne Wasteny with her as well, who also missed. This is the opposite of what happened last year. Lindsay Webster hit her spear while other athletes missed their spear, and the twister after that, she ran away with the race. Now Nicole is in the driver's seat as
That is Miriam and our athlete from Denmark at the spear as well, all looking to hit with face standing coming up as well.
What a devastating thing to happen to the entire women's field right now. The only people that were really with a shot of catching Nicole Mericle at this point are all doing burpees.
Lindsay just exited as Nicole now pulls off the gloves and has to attack this again with those great, strong rock climbing hands. She has to keep the feet off the ground though.
Unbelievable grip strength and upper body strength from Nicole Mericle. You wouldn't expect it when you see her frame, but just, it's so solid. She just has no weaknesses now when it comes to obstacles.
She didn't even throw her knees into the wall to get that perpendicular pressure. It was just her hips. Those were all shoulders.
And now again, armor, we're talking about those wide stance, that external hip rotation, and how taxing that is on those muscles.
And there is Faye Stenning, who's missed her spear as well. It is carnage there as Rebecca misses as well, and is also doing burpees.
Rebecca Hammond doing burpees, Faye Stenning doing burpees. This is Robert Killian coming under that bridge we talked about before. That is pretty nasty, and now a big descent from him. He's got at least a mile of downhill running ahead of him.
And just that annoying little bridge having to go under, using other muscles, coming around that tight turn, and having to take his hands out of the gloves for whatever reason, that is not boding well for him going down to monkey in the middle, which is a twister, monkey bar, twister obstacle, which is going to be the most grip-intensive obstacle we have coming up.
Robert Killian is looking phenomenal on this descent right now. This is the best we've seen him run all year. This is the best we've probably seen him run in a year and a half. And it's an absolutely crazy descent over these next mile and a half or so. He's going to be flying probably sub 5-minute miles once this thing really flattens out into the road section right here.
And as he starts descending down too, the snow is going to start to dissipate. The footing is going to get better.
The wind's going to go away.
And there is no more single track. As his arms are flailing to the sides, he's trying to keep balance. At this point, if he was trying to brake, he would slip and fall down right on his face. So it's better for him to just run as fast as he can and let gravity pull him down the hill.
Gotta let gravity take you. That resistance, when you try and slow yourself down, that's when your heel slips out, up and under you and out in front of you. That's the mile 7 marker he just passed. Robert Killian about halfway into this race. And that's Jonathan Albon giving chase on the descent, an excellent descender. Jonathan Albon is going to run like a bat out of hell because he needs to gain on Robert Killian. Going to run out of real estate real fast.
And you can see the athleticism. The cameraman is desperately trying to keep up with him. With those long strides, he is using less steps to step in this treacherous terrain. It's actually the best way to go, but you have to have tremendous footwork to attack it the way he is. And as you notice, the snow has started to dissipate. There isn't as much on the ground. It's more dry terrain. He's able to attack it more. And there we go, our athletes on the bender. There's Lindsay Webster and Miriam, both at the same time. They were able to reel in Nicole Webster even after missing the spear after she did.
And that's Nicole Mericle all alone at the multi-rig as we saw a crowd of athletes over on the Olympus obstacle. Miriam Bissett, we saw Lindsay Webster, we saw Ricky all over there competing for that second and third podium spot. But can anybody catch Nicole Mericle? Because she is just blazing through this course.
As bad as the carnage was, at least they saw that everybody else other than Nicole missed the spear. So even though they know they missed a golden opportunity to make up time and pull away, at least it's not complete disaster and they're still in the ballgame.
And you can see Lindsay Webster blasted through this Olympus obstacle, and our 2 European athletes, probably not as used to it, are taking much longer to complete it, struggling with the pitch of that Olympus obstacle, but also with the material that it's made out of.
Yeah, Miriam's experience here is she's always run the Tahoe World Championship very well, but she's struggled on obstacles. Her proficiency was terrible.
Her
but
first
she could
year,
always
she
run.
did about 150 burpees and still took a top 10 finish.
That's incredible if you think about it, because I mean the time and the energy that takes. But this year she made a commitment to be better at her obstacles. She actually completed what's very rare. She completed what's called a quadfecta. She did an ultra beast, which is 2 laps of the length of this course, a beast, a super, and a sprint in the same weekend, and podiumed all of them. Not only did she podium, she won all of them with the exception of the sprint, which wasn't a competitive race. Incredible to do that 3 days in a row at every level and win every single one. To do that, you have to be better at obstacles.
Unbelievable. And Lindsay Webster right here, she's got to pick herself up. This is the most adversity we've seen her face at any point in the last few years. She is on the ropes like we've never seen her before. For years, all we've seen is Lindsay Webster out in front, dominating races, and right now, she is minutes back from Nicole Mericle, but there's still 9-10 miles left in this race. Plenty of time and anything can happen.
This reminds me of Tom Brady, who's always in the Super Bowl, almost always winning, and then throws a pick six in the biggest game of the year. That's exactly what just happened.
Now Nicole Mericle opening up on this descent a little bit, trying to put that gap between herself and Lindsay Webster to as much as she can. And Jonathan Albon now giving big chase. He's down to 5th position again. He did his 30 burpees, and he's already caught Tyler Veerman, who did no burpees. He's gaining on Ian Hosek. He's gaining, hopefully, on Ryan Atkins as well. That's the man that he knows he's going to have to chase hard all the way to the finish line.
And to get a great gauge actually where he is, we just saw Robert Killian, who's leading the race, in this exact spot just minutes ago. So he's reeling him in, and the best part of his course, which is that last uphill climb and descent, are still in front of him.
Nicole Mericle has made it to the Tyrolean Traverse obstacle. This is possibly the toughest sequence of obstacles over the course of this race. You go from this Tyrolean where you're gripping, you're using your hands, your hips are working really hard to work across to that bell, and then you go straight from that into the ape hanger. That's a nasty sequence.
Yeah, generally you'll see Nicole attack that obstacle the exact way she did right there. And you talked about it before, how you have to throw your legs back and forth. That taxes the groin. It also taxed her grip strength going into one of the hardest obstacles she has for her grip.
Well, and not only is it the grip that's being taxed there, but also this is the coldest part of the course. And you're having to use your hands, but you have to remove them from your gloves. This is where your fingers can really start to freeze out a little bit.
And she has a choice here: jump, which she just did,
Great
or
jump.
go in the water. To jump there, you still have to have so much explosive energy in your legs. You have to be feeling great to want to jump there. And she did that. Now she just locked her feet in an S-hook so she could adjust her hands. I've never seen an athlete do that in a race, let alone a race of this magnitude. And she's doing it again. She found a knot. She's adjusting herself. She's taking her time, doing it with such tremendous poise. And now working her way through, matching and maintaining her momentum.
Wow,
and now
she
ape
just went to
swinging.
the swing. Now, this is a testament to the rock climbing that she does and how confident she is in her grip strength. This is not just any old monkey bar. The fact that this is connected by cables, it's swaying and swinging and unstable. It's much harder than a normal monkey bar. And look how easy she made it look. She's going to drop into the water, mandatory water drop, but kept her hands dry. That was key.
Uses that rope wisely to get out. If those hands were to get submerged, it could be disaster. The descent to that might be the trickiest part of it, and she executed it so well.
Lindsay Webster giving chase, trying to pull herself back into this race. Again, on the ropes like we've never seen her before, but if anyone can pull themselves back, it's Lindsay Webster, who most of us consider to be the greatest racer of all time.
Oh, absolutely. She's the most accomplished. And she was the 2018 and 19 U.S. National Series champion, the same for the North American Regional Championship, the 2-time reigning world champion, and if she wins today, that would cap off an epic three-peat that has never been done in the history of the sport.
And might never, ever happen again. As Nicole Mericle has made her way out of the barbed wire and heads over to the Atlas carry, we still haven't seen Lindsay Webster hit any of these obstacles yet. That is quite a solid lead for Nicole Mericle, and you know she's running on cloud 9 right now.
To put it into context, we've seen all the things these athletes have to do so far, running up and down these snowy, slick, treacherous hills, navigating all these obstacles. To think that these athletes push this hard throughout the course of an entire season for years and barely ever get injured, it's just incredible testament to their athleticism, their conditioning, and just the blessed luck they have of staying healthy.
Well, Lindsay Webster is making her way into the Tyrolean Traverse. And again, a tough obstacle, especially because she just spent so much time on her hands on those burpees. And another, just like at West Virginia, another dive grab for Nicole Mericle on that slip wall. She just seems to just barely get over it each time. And Webster is through the Tyrolean and making her way up to the ape hanger.
Now, you talked about how she possibly is nursing a foot injury. We don't really know. It's been a rumor. That will affect how she approaches this right here, whether she jumps in, whether she climbs in. And it looks like she is taking the conservative approach to get in the water already. When you know that you have to get in the water after this, it's really not that big a deal to get wet now. But the longer you could always stay dry in this, the better.
And it's interesting. I just saw a smile creep across Lindsay Webster's face as she hit that water. I don't know how or why, but she just seems to be still, despite all this adversity she's facing, happy to be out there.
And as good as she is on these obstacles, it's important to remind everyone that early in her Spartan career, something like this would have been an obstacle she could never do. She would have never had the upper body strength to pull herself up into that position. She has worked her way into this caliber of an athlete. It's just a testament to not only how hard she works, but how talented she is. But
even as early as the beginning of last year, this would have been an obstacle she struggled with tremendously, even if these weather conditions were ideal, and they are certainly not right now.
It's the perfect testament that when talent meet hard work, champions are made.
She's been a champion before she was good at these obstacles. Look how deadly she is now, and that's Erin Newell flying down this descent. Look at the pace that they are moving by all this brush. That's our lead runner, our cameraman, our rabbit, sprinting at that speed as well. We're talking sub 5-minute mile pace on these descents.
Yeah, that is not a gator. That is not a buggy or a car. That is a human being with a camera running in front of one of the best athletes in this sport.
Albeit a small camera that you can tuck behind you and backwards and not have to break stride. But we have some of the best athletes in the trail running community leading our rabbit team, running with these guys, working their butts off, dealing with the cold and the fatigue as well. So we commend them every episode as they deserve it.
Okay.
Now Erin Newell unzipping a little bit, getting into his rhythm.
You notice he's taking a hat off. He's starting to take some of those clothes off. As they get down here, it's going to get warmer, and they're going to have to shed the clothes a little bit.
Good job.
Now Newell is going to be really strong when we get down to the bottom here. We have a couple grip strength obstacles at the bottom of this descent. One is going to be the helix, the other is the monkey in the middle. That's one that is going to shake up the race a little bit.
And every year we find an athlete here who comes out of nowhere that does really well. This athlete from Denmark is one of them.
Yep.
Aaron Newell, you know he'd be in the race and be interesting. We did not think he'd be up that far in the pack this late in the race.
Well, we saw Faye Stenning just get into that Tyrell. We have Ulrike as well. Amazing that she's been doing this entire upper section of the course without any jacket or any covering at all. Just exposed skin, but I guess when you're from Denmark, you're a little more used to it.
And if you notice Faye Stenning right there, she was not moving her legs at all on that tie
Just dragging them.
It was just dragging them and using all arms. That's energy that she needs for the ape hanger that's draining her right there.
Very
That's not
hard.
a good sign.
Erin Newell, watch how fast he gets through these obstacles. It's absolutely extraordinary. His dexterity, his balance, he just went hands off completely on that section of helix. In and out in under 10 seconds.
I mean, for most athletes take their time on that and make sure they're very focused and don't make a mistake. He just went hands-free on that. You don't see that out of any of the other athletes on this course.
He'll go hands-free on a number of grip-based obstacles. He'll actually swing jump himself from one bar or one grip to the next. As you can see, up to the top of the rope climb in 3 pulls like it's nothing. And now he's heading into the most challenging obstacle in this festival area, and that's the monkey in the middle. It's going to be a twister obstacle into monkey bars, into another twister obstacle, and each twister is 2 sections, so it's actually double the length of a normal twister with monkey bars in the middle. And Robert Killian in the lead has already left the monkey in the middle and is heading back up his second major ascent up the mountain.
If you talk about all those risks that Aaron Newell makes, every single risk that he takes when he's successful just gives him more time on the other athletes. That adds up. Those little moments add up when all these athletes are so close in their running speed. That makes a huge difference in the placing later in the race.
Well, Robert Killian is on his way up to ascent number 2, and this is the location of where his races have fallen apart in a couple years past. He's had the lead. He had the lead over Cody Moat in 2017 at this point in the race, and then was run down. It's going to be a major effort for him as he gets over this 8-foot box.
And if you see the lady in the gray pants and the gray hat and sunglasses, that is his wife Maxine, who is cheering him on during this race.
Well, Aaron Newell has just wrapped up Monkey in the middle, and he is now on his way up the mountain as well. So no rest for Robert Killian. He's being chased by a man possessed in Aaron Newell.
Robert Killian got through that 8-foot box a lot cleaner than he did in West Virginia. He lost some time there, and now he got through that fast and is heading up that ascent.
This is only about a minute gap back to Aaron Newell. It's a very tight race still. When you have 5 miles left in this race, it's about the 8-mile marker, a minute is not much of a lead.
This has to be deja vu in Robert Killian's head. The last 2 years. Look at those explosive flips down there
the
as
risks
he
that
jumps
he takes,
off.
the risk that Aaron Newell will take on every obstacle. He is not afraid to fail an obstacle. He is willing to risk failure to gain seconds here and there. And that's how you win a championship.
There's a fine line between confidence and arrogance, and he walks that at every single race he's at. Getting back to Robert Killian, if he looks back now and sees where Aaron Newell is, he's got to be like, how is this happening to me again? I've just run the race of my life, and somebody's on my tail who's a good climber who has the ability to run me down.
And it's shocking because Aaron Newell, as good as he is, has not been in this position this late in any race this year. And look who it is, guys. Ryan Atkins is now coming down the A-frame cargo net in 3rd position, just behind Aaron Newell. And he is headed into the 8-foot box. And then the last climb for him on the day. Once they get through this final ascent, it's all downhill and flats and obstacles from there. If he's going to catch Robert Killian and Aaron Newell, he's going to have limited real estate to do so. This climb is critical.
And we can't be naive to think that Ryan Atkins doesn't know who's in front of him and how far, because there are fans lined up along that course that are giving live updates to these athletes as they're running by. He knows where they're at.
Yeah, Ryan Atkins went from the top of the mountain, 12th position, all the way to 3rd by the time he got to the bottom. That, in just a matter of 3 or 4 miles, an incredible move by Ryan Atkins. Every time we checked in with him, he was just another place or two higher, methodically working his way back up to the front of the pack.
Started in that double sandbag, and as expected, he is the 2nd best descender in the world next to Johnny Lunalima. But Johnny Lunalima, we haven't seen him since the very beginning of the race. So right now, Atkins is in great position, but this is exactly where he was last year, in 3rd or 4th place, starting that last climb, and he didn't have enough real estate. Will he have enough real estate today? That question is still out there.
Well, as he makes his way up, he had a moment where you couldn't tell where he was headed. He almost followed the kids course straight up the side of the mountain. But Ryan Atkins is back on track. We saw this exact same snafu from Cody Moat just a couple years ago when he won the World Championships. In this exact field, this exact spot, he almost ran off course as well.
Yeah, that part of the course was actually called the Kid of the Hill. It was where they had the kids race yesterday, and that kids race was probably harder than most adult 5Ks.
It was definitely harder. Aaron Newell is charging his way up this mountain, trying to catch Robert Killian, but Ryan Atkins is also hot on his heels, and just behind him, lurking, we know that Ian Hosek and Jonathan Albon also in this mix.
And lurking after this climb and descent is the championship sandbag. So if Aaron Newell wants to stay in this race, he's going to have to maintain a little bit of gas in the tank because some of the better carriers are going to be coming up behind him.
For clarification on the exact splits, Robert Killian came through that 8-foot box at 1 hour and 24 minutes. Aaron Newell at 1 hour 25:30, and Atkins at 1 hour 26. Good. So plenty of opportunity for each of them to draw themselves back into this race. Atkins is actually 1 minute and 26 seconds behind Aaron Newell, but Ian Hosek's only 30 seconds behind him, and another 30 seconds back to Jonathan Albon.
And working her way back into this race, as we saw Lindsay Webster getting to the bottom of the double sandbag, as Nicole Mericle is now struggling. Like Jonathan Albon, she has some of these bags in front of her. It's forcing her to use her arms and her back way more than she would want, with Lindsay coming up right behind her. She's made up a lot of that gap after the spear as Nicole Mericle goes down.
A devastating situation for her, having to reset by setting the bags all the way down. This is the worst possible scenario during a sandbag carry. You not only have to stop moving forward, but you have to waste the energy to pick the bags back up, to reload them, and the person behind you is just gaining. And now she's just so close to the top. Nicole Mericle said, I'm just going to tuck one bag in, hold it in front of me, and just get there.
And this is hurting her hands as far as exposing them to the cold even more. You can see them plopping out of those gloves. It's going down. And now she needs to use this strength later for dexterity and grip strength obstacles, and she's wasting it right now in the sandbag and really struggling with Lindsay Webster having those bags put in a position where she wouldn't have to put them down. This is disastrous right now for Nicole.
This is definitely not the ideal scenario for her. You can see her also having to weave through all these men that you see are resting, holding on.
I don't know if they're resting. They are broken.
There's a lot of shattering going on out here in the course at this exact moment. We saw it in the men's field early. You can see it with the men around Nicole now. But she is still, despite her struggle here, stoic and steady, and she is about to crest that final climb.
Once she gets these bags off her shoulders and arms, she's going to have to start running fast because she was able to look down and see where Lindsay Webster was, and there's nothing more scary in this world of OCR than seeing Lindsay Webster coming up behind you on a heavy carry.
Lindsay Webster, still one of the best descenders in the world. She's excellent at carries, and now she's excellent at obstacles. So when you talk about Nicole Mericle and you talk about Lindsay Webster, these are the two best in the world right now, and neither of them have any flaws in the things that they can do. They have no holes in their game. They're excellent across the board. Nicole Mericle is done with her sandbags, and she's off towards the next big challenge, the swim.
And this is what we talked about from the beginning. In the press conference, when they asked her about that water, she cringed. The look of fear on her face was like nothing I've ever seen on there before. She's been working hard to get in cold water over the last couple months to get her ready for something like this, but there's going to be no way that she could prepare for how cold this water is going to be. If she's able to survive it, great, but we're going to find that out really soon.
Well, Jonathan Albon is just behind Ian Hosick up here on this climb. You can see Hosick in that greenish blue jacket just in front of him. And Albon not at his usual running form right here. We'd expect to see him really powering through this climb. He needs it. There he goes. He needs to put pedal to the metal now if he's going to get back on that podium.
And Aaron Newell's doing that as well. And we saw Ian Hosick putting it down right in front there and in front of the 2018 World Champion. So Ian Hosick is throwing down the race of his life at this moment.
There's no question this is the best race we've ever seen Ian Hosick run, but also the best race we've ever seen Aaron Newell run. Sitting in second position at this far into the race is absolutely unbelievable, almost 10 miles in at this point.
We've never seen this from him. He's a man that runs with tremendous confidence. He does everything with confidence, and now he's actually reaping the rewards of that because we've never seen him in this position before.
Coming up still, we have another sandbag carry and a number of other technical obstacles, including the beater. We've got a tire flip. That's where things could definitely be shaken up. We saw how that affected the podium in West Virginia as well.
And we saw it affect Robert Killian in this very race last year, where he went from first. Well, he stayed in first after his struggles at the tire, but was quickly caught by Jon Albon and Ryan Atkins, who are hot on his heels as well right now.
Well, that gap between Nicole Mericle and Lindsay Webster has held because Lindsay is now finished with that sandbag carry. One descent towards that big swim for her, and this is going to be a make or break section of this race. In and out of the swim, who can keep moving?
She looks really comfortable there on her face right now. She doesn't look like she's working that hard. And Nicole looks like she's running a little scared right now. But like Ryan Atkins, she has that river bag. She's starting to put her dry clothes in it. She will strip down to basically what is her sports bra when she hits that water and try to keep everything dry. Taking the time right now to make sure that you prepare your clothing for this swim is the most crucial part of the race.
I mean, she's going to save a lot of time if she's not freezing when she comes out of it. That is a very savvy move. Pre-planned by her. We'll see if Lindsay Webster does the same thing since her husband Ryan Atkins did.
Yep.
But now this is the last bend before they head into that swim.
You got three guys.
This is critical. One of the most dangerous parts of this race for Nicole Mericle is, can she keep that body from cramping up? We know she had cramps in West Virginia. She had a chance to win that race, and at mile 13, the cramps set in, and she just could no longer hold that pace with Lindsay Webster. But she said physically, I was fine and ready, and then the cramps came out of nowhere.
To put it into context right here, you see her passing one of the other men. Every single person in this race today had to qualify at a national series from their country or a regional series from the area of the world they're at. So these are the best of the best from everywhere around the world, and these women are passing men that started 30 minutes before them.
But right now you can see Lindsay Webster starting to do her preparation as well, which means the gloves might be coming off. But I'm not sure she's going to be doing the full clothes change.
Well, it just depends on how fast she does it. Nicole decided to do it on the way there. Lindsay might decide to do it once she gets there and to maintain her pace right now.
This is an excellent opportunity on the course to actually open up, run, push your tempo a little bit, especially knowing what's coming up. But Lindsay Webster seems to be doing all her prep work right now.
Well, the jacket did come off, the gloves are coming off, and there's Nicole, like we predicted, into the sports bra, clothes her in the bag, grab the PFD, and then like ripping off a Band-Aid, just jump in and embrace the suck.
And that's the thing, they're only in the water for a minute or two. Make it fast, get in and out quick, and get back up to speed. That's critical. A lot of times you see athletes come out of the water and they're so shell-shocked that they just can't get their bodies moving, and the longer that they walk and that they have that slow death march, the worse the cold sets in and chills them to the bone, and then their race is over. Physically and mentally, they just can't put it back together.
The gasping and the agony I have seen up here is second to none, and there she goes, right in. She has to get around that red buoy and then make it back, and then she'll be able to get a beat on where Lindsay Webster is.
Now she's swimming with basically one arm because she's holding that dry bag. Interesting that she didn't attach it to herself, but around the buoy she's gonna go.
The rule is whatever you take on course, you have to carry with you through every obstacle, so she is not permitted to leave it on shore. It must go in the water with her.
And as you see athletes coming out, it's the wind that's gonna affect them now. When they come out of this little bowl that they're in and they get exposed to that wind, that's where the wetness really takes a toll.
And they're being evaluated by medical professionals as they're coming out of the water to make sure they're essentially okay to race after this. So here she is, she's gonna pop out. We're gonna be able to see this transition.
She's going right back to her clothes as soon as she can get this life jacket off.
And if you're looking at her face, there's no chattering in the teeth. There was no severe agony. I really think she survived this, and she's already back into her run. This is a really good sign.
A very good sign. As you can see, all these other athletes who just seem to be broken by that water. Nicole Mericle, no signs of fatigue. And that is Lindsay Webster, all stripped down as well, ready to go in. Just the sports bra as well, same exact technique. It's almost like they discussed it beforehand. They are very good friends.
A little bit of a different technique though. She actually ran away before she got her PFD, but instead of a water bag, she went old school. She's going hefty bag.
Hefty bag.
That is a black garbage bag that she just probably pulled out of the hotel.
It's possible.
You could be the world champ, but just still keeping it real.
They going down this way?
Yeah, that's exactly what she did, and now Lindsay Webster making her way into the swim. It looks like about a 2.5 minute gap back to Nicole Mericle.
Put it around because you don't have the buckle on that side. Okay, that works.
The rule is it also has to be buckled. They can't just enter the water and have it flail with them. She has to get it on correctly, otherwise she will not be able to continue or enter the water.
And these are precious seconds just ticking away. Like if you're gonna make this comeback, these seconds matter. Every moment counts for Lindsay Webster right now in her quest for a three-peat.
Every single moment counts. Now, she was able to see Nicole coming out of the water, so she knows that Nicole's going to be hitting the downhill. But Nicole also knows what a descender she is. So this is an advantage from Nicole because it totally tells her, I need to hammer it on this downhill if I want to maintain my lead.
And again, that one-arm swim because they're holding the bags. That is definitely a difficult thing to do. Nicole Mericle, no signs of slowing right now. She's back in her gear and she's moving comfortably.
It's pretty hard to put on your gear now as they're still trying to get down this single track, maintain their balance, run with speed. So I expect her not to put the jacket on anytime soon, just to get to this precarious terrain. And then when she gets into a little bit more open area, then she could put the other clothes back on.
Well, she's still holding it, which makes you think maybe she's trying to dig through that bag still a little bit more instead of strapping it on. But We'll see how things go. Lindsay Webster coming out of the swim. Still a smile on her face. It's shocking. Hard to believe.
She is Canadian. She is a highly accomplished cross-country skier. She's used to and comfortable with the cold weather. She smiled when they talked about the swim yesterday, and now she gets to dig into that garbage bag, put the clothes back on, and go chase after Nicole Mericle.
There's the jacket that we were talking about for Nicole. So once she's on with that, this descent won't affect her from a temperature standpoint, and that's key. You'll see a lot of people out on this course that she's going to start passing who are falling apart coming out of that water. Not Nicole Mericle. These brutal conditions, the wind, the ice, the cold, none of it matters now because Nicole Mericle is on a fast sprint down to the bottom of that mountain. She knows that she's got a championship in her grasp.
She did everything on the run or on the walk. It was very wise for her to put the jacket on when she was going uphill because there was really no danger of her tripping. But you see Lindsay Webster now stopping to put her clothes on. That is wasting valuable time. Every second she stops to put her clothes on, Nicole Mericle is gaining about 5 meters of space on her.
And look, it's back to Aaron Newell. Still in second position, slowing just a little bit, but he's got a nice climb right here. We'll wrap this up. Robert Killian still out in first position right now. Aaron Newell in second, Ryan Atkins in third, followed by Ian Hosick and Jonathan Albon, and they are closing in on the final stages of this race.
He may be running a little bit slower, but this is still a guy who's running 11 miles into the race up the mountain with speed.
With speed. It's going to be critical for him to just continue to maintain a comfort zone. He can't overrun as much as he wants to right now. It's just too risky.
And if you're looking at, you know, the comfortability of an athlete, here it is, as cold as it was, it came out of the water. He's not doing anything to protect his hands right now. That just shows me how comfortable and how warm he is and how ready he is for this last part of the race.
He looks very smooth and comfortable right now. That's a good sign for Aaron Newell, but he's being chased by two of the best descenders and finishers in this sport.
It's going to be so important for him to maintain the speed, continue to create a gap. I mean, in his head right now, I don't even know if he's worried about who's behind him as he is worried about just going after Killian. This guy's going for first place right now. He's just not trying for a podium. He wants to be a champ.
He knows that Robert has struggled this year, and he knows that Robert has struggled maintaining a lead on this course late in races. So this is as good an opportunity as any for him to come in out of nowhere and steal a world title.
Aaron is also a beast on the tire flip, and the last time they saw each other in North American Regional Championship, Robert Killian was absolutely having a brutal time on the tire, along with Ryan Kent. Aaron Newell came in, 2 quick flips, was gone, and then ran in for a top 5 finish.
Aaron Newell is primed at the exact perfect time all year long, slowly but surely and methodically moving himself into the upper echelon of athletes in this sport. And now he has a chance to be on the podium, just like his girlfriend, Nicole Mericle, right here. First place as she begins the long descent towards the bottom of the mountain and into the festival area.
Nicole has not been known as a great descender, but her and Aaron have been working on her descents over the last few months, and it looks like it's paying off. See how nimble and quick her feet are, as that one guy is trying to keep his hands warm in a very precarious spot.
I will say, this is that opportunity for Lindsay Webster to draw herself back into the race. All those rocky descents, anything technical that involves picking, anything that athletes are slowing on as they descend down, Lindsay typically does not have to slow down on those. But we know she has that foot injury. And how is that going to play in as she tries to open up on this downhill?
Some good etiquette there by the other racers, letting her blow past. They know what she's doing right now. She's the first woman that's passing them, so they're getting out of the way and letting her do her thing.
Right, we just passed the mile 6 marker. So as much as Nicole has control of this race right now, we still have almost 8 miles left. Anything can happen. 8 miles is, we're talking about, they will be running for 1:20 still.
We still have some very difficult obstacles to come up. And you alluded to before, that monkey in the middle that has the twister, undulating monkey bars to another row of twisters is going to test all their grip and upper body.
Aaron Newell looking back now, that is not a good sign. You can see an athlete in the distance. Ryan Atkins closing in just a little bit, making him nervous. When an athlete is running and looking back behind him, it means either they're hurting, or they're worried that someone's coming.
And it's the first time we saw him going to a power walk. And when you see Ryan Atkins coming up, and he is almost superhuman.
Terminator.
I always talk about Ryan Atkins in the same breath as I do the great racehorse Secretariat, right? The more that man works, the better he gets. And he's just like, that is just a great analogy you had, the Terminator. He just keeps coming at you no matter what happens.
The thing about Ryan Atkins is as the race gets longer, he gets better. And the further into the race he gets, it seems the more warmed up he is, the better he runs. He's been primed and ready and constantly accelerating into this race, and now he'll be at top speed for the last few miles.
And we talked about Aaron Newell's relationship with suffering, how it's a good one. Nobody handles suffering better than Ryan Atkins, and he will give a kidney to come and win this race today.
Ryan Atkins, for those who don't know, is undefeated on 100-mile races. That is something that can't be said about anybody else in this sport. No matter who comes after him in these 24-hour events, these sufferfests, he always, every single time, has come out on top.
That's Lindsay Webster trying to get some mobility and some blood flow back into the upper body after that really cold swim.
You know, there's a lot of pressure into those shoulders now as everything starts to tighten up a little bit. She's got to work really hard to keep herself warm and to keep herself loose moving forward. Now, we haven't heard much from the third, fourth, fifth position in this race, and for more with that, Steve Hammond, the third member of our broadcast team, is going to fill us in. Steve.
So I'm right here with Jon Albon. He's made a bit of a great comeback. This is fourth place. We know that Jon can descend pretty epically. He's got Ryan Atkins just up there in third, Aaron Newell not too far ahead in second, and Robert with about a minute and a half lead. It's all to play for, guys. Jon's moving up this hill. Back to you. Thank you.
Well, thanks a lot, Steve, and it's great to see Albon making a move, possibly getting back to that podium after that disastrous miss on the spear throw. And speaking of podiums, Nicole Mericle out in front, barreling down this rocky terrain, headed towards the festival area.
Yeah, her descending is really good right now. Watch the footwork. She's starting to get into that area where there's not as much snow, and it's going to allow her to rip a little bit faster. Pretty soon she's going to hit that 7-foot wall and really be able to barrel down the hill.
Run her back.
And for Nicole Mericle right now, she doesn't know where Lindsay Webster is, but she knows that she has at least a full swim plus gap on her. That's the last time she had any chance to see Lindsay Webster, and if she didn't see her, that's even better news.
The next time she'll be able to look is when she gets through it. Granted, if she gets through the obstacle clean, would be after the monkey twister, and when she gets up to the A-frame cargo net. That's usually a great place where you have a high vantage point where you can look behind you and see where the other athletes are.
And it's not just the ability to look back and see, but it's also the hearing the crowd. When you hear the crowd, you have a very good sense of where another athlete has emerged for you. So right now, we got Aaron Newell again in pipe layer, working across this thing, very smooth and comfortable, but look just behind him. That's Ryan Atkins.
Made up a tremendous gap. Ryan Atkins was about 100 meters down the hill and then already got up to within an obstacle's distance of him.
And again, climbing. This second ascent, not as long as the other one, but just steep and nasty. And you've done so much at this point. It's so challenging to keep the legs moving. But Aaron Newell is getting desperate because that is Ryan Atkins now closing within about 50 yards.
And you can see Jonathan Albon right behind him in fourth place. So if he looked back right now, he'd see two of the best in the world hot on his heels.
Can you imagine being Aaron Newell right now, thinking that you were running to try and capture first place, and then realizing all this time, two of the most dangerous racers in the world, the men who finished first and second here last year, are now clawing their way back to you, and you might not just win the race, you might not just get second place, you may miss the podium entirely now.
That's when the demons start to set into your head.
It's such a mental thing to fight right now because He knows he's at his limits. If he could run faster, they wouldn't be gaining on him right now.
Yeah,
so the panic mode is setting in.
There's what you could tell yourself in your head and convince yourself what's happening, and then there's reality. And reality is creeping up on him right now, and that is Ryan Atkins and Jon Albon.
Now, I will tell you, looking at Lindsay Webster right now, she is not descending as her usual self. She looks very tentative on those toes.
She is used to bombing down these, and she is not taking the risks we normally take.
She is braking. You can see her heels really digging in on each of these steps. That is not a typical descending style for Lindsay Webster. Not the same athlete right now that we're used to seeing. She's going to have to figure out where else can I make up the time on Nicole Mericle. Maybe it's that next uphill, but she's got to continue to press her. She needs to make her nervous. She needs to be a presence when Nicole is at that monkey in the middle obstacle. If Lindsay can get to helix at that time, the crowd noise may be enough to get in Nicole's head.
There's going to have to be a point where Lindsay Webster makes a commitment to send it no matter what. She's going to have to take some risks. We talked about Erin Newell taking all those risks. Lindsay Webster is going to have to do it. She never really has to. She's always been ahead, but now she's going to have to throw some punches she's not used to taking.
Well, Erin Newell is approaching the next big climb, the modified Stairway to Sparta.
Yeah, this obstacle's a little bit different. It used to be just kind of a lattice structure with a small wall. Now you have to jump up and actually find a grip on these rock climbing grips, and he has no problem doing it. He only had to touch 2. But for some of the other athletes to be able to jump there and actually find that grip, it's going to be really hard with those frozen hands, and he made it look easy.
Well, you know who else is not going to have a problem with this obstacle is Ryan Atkins, who is even closer now. Looks like he just hit that wall right as Erin was finishing it. This is a very precarious situation for Erin Newell, and he is going to have to take risks for the rest of this race. He's got a second position podium spot on the line right now. And still, all of them hunting Robert Killian, who's out in front. We haven't seen him in a while because he's been blazing through this course.
And this is where the quads are really going to take a beating now. So you're starting to come down this hill. The next obstacle they have after this is that championship sandbag. So this downhill works your quads like nothing else. And then they're going to have to power up the hill with those same muscle groups.
And as fast as Erin Newell is running right now, you can see him braking as well. And you know that Ryan Atkins right behind him and Jonathan Albon are not going to brake at all. They're going to bomb this thing to try and get back to that podium. And now the halfway mark for Nicole Mericle, mile 7.
Just hit mile 7, it's starting to open up a little bit. She's going to be hitting that wall pretty soon, and then it's really going to be a mad dash down to that festival area.
She is descending faster than Lindsay Webster right now, which is, I would say, a first in a major mountain race like this. That's a very good sign for Nicole Mericle as she's halfway into this race.
Permission to speculate right here. What do you think is happening in 3rd, 4th, 5th place right now with the women? We have not seen what's going on back there.
We saw some major contenders from the European contingent, Riki, and we saw Miriam Bissett. I imagine a battle between them is happening, but we also have Rebecca Hammond in the mix too. So keep an eye out for her. Also, Esther Hortab of Slovakia has been close by, and Alex Walker.
Not to mention someone who is also incredible in the snow is Ashley Heller. She loves the snow. She loves the mountains. She was in 11th place at this race last year, and she came in like a force. And we saw her in the bucket carry up there with all those top women, like you said, Rebecca, and with Alex Walker. So I'm interested to see where she is at as well.
Well, coming out of the swim, Nicole Mericle was at an hour 9:51. Lindsay Webster about a minute 20 behind her, and Rebecca Hammond was the next athlete, a full 6 minutes behind Lindsay Webster. Absolutely hard to believe. After that, you had a cluster of athletes coming through within the next 2 minutes. Esther Hortab, Alex Walker, Miriam Bissett, Amanda Nadeau, all within about 2 minutes of one another, and Leanne Wastley not far behind there.
Well, we saw how Nicole and Lindsay Webster made very easy work of an obstacle that was very difficult, such as the ape hanger. All those other women, most of them had failed the spear throw. So going into that ape hanger, it's hard to believe that they handled it as well as Nicole and Lindsay did. They certainly didn't do it better because they did it incredible. So I'm anxious to see if any of them had failed or messed up or hit the water on that ape hanger.
Yeah, it's very possible, especially if you did burpees already in the spear. Now your hands are all jacked up from getting down in that cold mud on the most exposed part of that course. Is Lindsay Webster trying her best to pull it back together, ignore the pain in that foot and just charge on this downhill.
Out here.
And we just got word that Faye Stenning, after failing the spear, failed the ape hanger.
Oh, tough break for Faye Stenning, an athlete who's a podium contender every time she steps on this course.
Oh, and Lindsay almost went down there as well, but it got worse for Faye. Once she hit the penalty loop barbed wire crawl and the loop after that, she had to pull out of the race. Could not feel her hands and had to withdraw.
Wow, that's the first time I've seen Faye Stenning withdraw from a race. And that just goes to show you how brutal the cold can be. If you're unable to keep that circulation, if you don't game plan with the right equipment and the right strategy, your hands can be your demise.
And it's not a matter of mental toughness or will to be out there. Sometimes the body will just fail you and you can't do anything more.
Well, circulation is, if you can't keep that going, you will lose all mobility and dexterity in those hands. And if you can't not just feel them, but also squeeze them, if you're unable to actually grip, you're toast in this race.
If you can't move your hands and if you can't grip things, and if your muscles won't function, you cannot do an event like this.
Well, Nicole Mericle shows no signs of problems with her hands thus far. Those mitts are doing a very good job for her. And Lindsay Webster behind her also with a very strong grip. But we've seen a lot of problems out of the rest of the athletes in the women's field as far as holding on to these grip-based obstacles here as we've moved only halfway through this course.
This is starting to become, as much of it is a race, just an act of valor, being able to suffer through all the things they are, the snow, the wind, the cold, and all the obstacles and everything that comes with it. This is just courage that we're watching out here today.
I mean, this is the Spartan World Championship. This is just some random race out in the middle of the woods. This is the biggest race of the year on the planet. And for these athletes to go out here, you couldn't expect anything less than absolute misery if they're going to earn themselves a championship.
That's the foundation and the principles that Spartan has been born on, as you're watching Robert Killian, who's leading the men's race, barreling down into the hurdles.
2 times over these hurdles. Robert Killian hasn't seen another athlete for the last hour. He's been out there by himself ever since Jonathan Albon and Ryan Woods missed that spear throw on the top of the mountain, and he has shown no signs of despair in any way. He's not even wearing gloves. His hands must be feeling great. That's absolute phenomenal sign for him moving into the final section of this course.
Absolutely, especially when you're getting into that sandbag, but more particularly that tire flip, which he struggled on last year. He needs to make sure that he's able to get a good pinch grip on there so he could lift the tire high enough to get his fingers underneath, because you won't be able to put his hands underneath because it's on concrete.
Now, a huge disadvantage for Robert Killian right now, one is not knowing where the athletes are, as he's now just past mile 12 on this course. He does not know that they are chasing him, who's chasing him, what order they're in, and the 3 of those men, Aaron Newell, Ryan Atkins, and Jonathan Albon, are all pushing each other at their limits right now, competing not just for podium spots, but to try and catch Robert. All he can do is keep driving and attacking, but he has no sense of who's charging on him right now.
And with that 1.5-minute lead that Steve Hammond gave us on the report, he will see them on the sandbag carry, but they will also see him as well. So they're going to be able to get a beat and be able to make a move.
The problem is, at that point, it's too late in the race. We're talking about critical that they gain on him now. They are 1 mile away from that sandbag carry. That's at mile 13. And here we go. Ryan Atkins, 2nd place. Is that possible that he just made that pass on Aaron Newell?
And that is about a minute behind Robert Killian right now.
Wow, 1 minute gap. That is an incredible close by Ryan Atkins.
We expected nothing less. The question now, is there enough race course left for Ryan Atkins to catch Robert Killian?
This is what seemed to be the problem last year for Ryan Atkins. He ran out of real estate trying to track down Jonathan Albon. Albon is on record saying that final descent into the festival area was the most painful moments of my life because Ryan Atkins was chasing him so hard on that final downhill. Now Robert Killian gets to relive that madness for himself.
And when he was the World Championship in 2015, when he won it, it was Ryan Atkins pushing him to the end in 2nd place.
Well, Nicole Mericle almost down to the festival area and into the helix obstacle herself, and she looks so strong right now. Look at that face, completely stoic, not out of breath, heart rate's under control, just sticking to her game plan.
And this gauntlet she's going to be coming into is something that's right up her alley. The helix, the monkey in the middle, the rope climb, and then just right into that 8-foot box before she heads back up the mountain. And as with as much power and speed she's running with right now, it doesn't look like anything's going to slow her down.
Well, she just clicked off another mile very quickly on this course. And she seems to be, again, descending better than Lindsay Webster today. That's a huge plus for her right now. And with the 8-minute gap that she has formed over the rest of the field, Lindsay's the only person really that stands a chance of pulling her back in.
Sandbag.
The great thing about Spartan, if this was just a trail race, you could basically, hand her the World Championship now, but anything could happen in Spartan, especially the World Championships, and we've seen it. So this is not over.
One set of burpees, and this is a brand new race. I'll tell you that right now. And with monkey in the middle looming, that is extremely possible.
Lindsay's got to make a move here. She's moving so much slower on these downhills than we've ever seen her.
She must be in a tremendous amount of pain.
She's running with a limp.
Yeah, she is. And imagine all of this misery and suffering, the runs up and down the mountains,
This is
the freezing cold, the bitter wet, and the wind, and now add to this potentially a broken bone in your foot that you're going to run on for 14 miles. How tough she is, what a champion she is, just to be in this position where she still could win this race.
It's just tremendous heart. I mean, that's what a champion is. She has had so much success in this sport. Now to face some adversity, even here, an 8-foot wall just trying to get over is giving her some troubles. And she's definitely limping a little bit on that left side. Good job. Was able to get a little bit of momentum and be able to transfer that into an upward motion so she could use that little kicker, that red kicker, to get over the wall.
Now that kick plate, for those of you at home wondering, is only allowed for the women. And we have Jonathan Albon up ahead, and we have Steve Hammond catching up with John, filling us in.
Amazing stuff here. We've just been following the guys, Ryan Atkins and Jon Albon has gobbled up Aaron Newell. All three of them are running together. We'll see who comes out of the woods first. Have they caught Robert Killian? I'm not sure. If Robert comes out here first, and here he comes, I think he could take this. This is amazing stuff. He's got to dig deep right now. There he is. Amazing, amazing, amazing stuff. Back to you.
Well, thanks a lot, Steve. And yes, Robert Killian putting in the performance of his year, possibly the performance of his lifetime today, trying to hold off the hard-charging Ryan Atkins and Jonathan Albon, who just captured Aaron Newell and are looking to seek him as well.
Robert Killian's kind of reminding me of Peyton Manning right now. He's the old master. It seems like he has like this one last great performance in him, and he's going for it.
Well, this is Nicole Mericle looking to win her first World Championships. She has been in Lindsay Webster's shadow for years now. It seems every time Nicole puts up a great performance, Lindsay Webster is just a little bit ahead of her, having lost to Lindsay in the last 4 races. Now a chance for redemption at the highest pinnacle of this sport.
There's Robert Killian sprinting down now into that championship sandbag. This is going to be the first time when he gets up there and he makes the turn where he's going to be able to mark the other men that are chasing him.
He is 13 miles into this race, and now this sandbag is about 300 meters up, 300 meters back. From there, he'll have to complete the beater obstacle, a tire flip, 8-frame cargo net, and a Herc hoist, and this race is his. Not much failable stuff left. That tire looms large.
In the previous years where he has lost the lead, he has lost it on top of the mountain or in the downhill. He's already surpassed that. Now he's down into the gauntlet at the bottom and can control the rest of the race with his wife Maxine following behind him, cheering him on and trying to urge him to his World Championship title.
Now, as much as it looks like he's out there all alone, he cannot get comfortable. Robert Killian only leads by about 60 seconds at this point in the race. And for Nicole Mericle, This is a key portion for her race as well. The monkey in the middle obstacle, the 2 sections of twister, the monkey bar, and 2 more sections of twister is a very failable obstacle, even for someone as sure-handed as her.
Okay, this is bare hands on metal. It's a spinning helix where these bars switch around. Every time you grab one, they dip down. So for her to do this, it's going to take a tremendous amount of bicep and grip strength, but she's doing it exactly how you expected. She's moving fast and is skipping as many rungs as possible. The least amount of moves you can make on this, the better, because it forces you to use less energy. And right now she's ripping through the monkey bar part of this.
We watched her blow on her hands for a little while, warm them up, get them ready. This is the critical section. You saw her try to go to the twister and have to go back to the supports. But now, finding her rhythm, 1 section from the end of twister. This is huge to determine if she's going to end up winning this race. A few struggles to warm that hand.
That just shows the rock climbing ability she has. That was not a slip, where that was actually her gauging and pulling that bar down to a better position, and she's almost to the end.
Now, going with the safe grips. Nicole Mericle nailed that one, and she is off and flying. She knows that that was one of the big steps towards winning a championship, was to complete that monkey in the middle obstacle. And now that that monkey's off her back, it's time to go climb this next mountain.
And for the first time in a race of this magnitude, I just saw her let her guard down. She went and high-fived the male athlete right next to her. That just shows you she's running happy, she's running confident, and she's in a good place right now going into the final part of this race.
Look at Robert Killian, the face of focus and confidence, just steady. And behind him, way in the distance, you saw a little speck. That's Ryan Atkins, the best heavy carrier in the sport, trying to track him down. We'll see if that lead shrinks from a minute to less. If it gets to inside 30 seconds, now Robert's got to start getting scared.
If there's anybody who could do it, it's Ryan Atkins, and he could do it on the tire. Robert Killian has to have that going through his head, because that's where he blew up last year, and Ryan Atkins is amazing at the tire in his own right.
And for Robert Killian, stay comfortable, stay calm, 1 obstacle at a time. Nicole going with the foot over the top technique.
There's a bar up there. She was able to hook with her ankle and then get her hand to it.
And now the climb. This obstacle slows a lot of people down. We've seen a lot of athletes lose a minute or 2 on the 8-foot box, struggling to get over it. It's, again, made of that slick, nasty, hard to grip material for your feet. Very hard to get traction.
And now we're getting a huge example of the gap Nicole Mericle has put on Lindsay. She has not even arrived anywhere close near the festival area. Nicole Mericle has about a 4 or 5 obstacle gap on Lindsay Webster right now. Reigning world champion, 2-time reigning world champion, Lindsay Webster right now is back, way back in 2nd place.
We said it looked like she was running slower on the downhill. It's much more than we thought it was. It seems that Nicole Mericle has put an additional couple minutes of distance between herself and Lindsay Webster. And look at that pass. Robert Killian on his way down on this sandbag carry as Jonathan Albon going up, 2 world champions passing each other. It's hard to believe it, but Robert Killian may be joining Jonathan Albon as one of the 2-time world champions in this sport. He just blew by Aaron Newell, who's climbing as well.
The other people to accomplish that: Cody Moat, Hobie Call, Claude Gugbeau, Zuzana Kutumova, and of course, Lindsay Webster.
What's incredible is we've had 4, if this holds, if Robert Killian wins a world championship, he'll become the 4th male to win 2 world titles in this sport. We have only had how many world championship events? 9?
We go back to 2012.
Yeah.
And there is Ryan Atkins hammering down. There is about a 35 to 40 second lead now. He's made up a gap and he's running faster now and he's closing it.
He's closing fast. The question is there enough real estate left? Robert Killian has just finished that sandbag carry, and now he knows, I am half a mile from this finish line. This race is mine if I can throw down some tempo and make no mistakes.
This race is going to be won and lost right now at the tire flip after the beater here. This is an obstacle that Robert Killian should get, so after this, it's going to tell the race.
This is critical. Get through this obstacle safely, clean, but also quickly. And for Robert Killian, should be no problem at all.
So these beaters are spinning monkey bars. As you go underneath them, they propel you forward, and you just made it through clean.
piece of cake. And now this is the big challenge, the Yokohama tire flip. Even if you're able to get it, sometimes 30 seconds or a minute can be wasted trying to get your fingers under this grip, especially because these are not on earth with undulated terrain. These are sitting on asphalt where it can be extremely hard to get your fingers underneath that completely flat plane.
So this takes a complete grip called a pinch grip, and it's all crushing grip with your hands. If your hands are cold, if they are wet, you cannot do it. He failed there last year as Atkins rips through the beater, hits the bell, and Killian is getting his first flip.
First flip over. Robert Killian has got one flip done. This might be the only thing that stands between him and a championship, and no problem there. 2 flips and gone. He can smell that World Championship.
He's 2 obstacles away, the giant A-frame cargo and then the Hercules hoist, and if he gets both of those, he will be the world champion for 2019.
Meanwhile, Ryan Atkins chasing and being chased. Jonathan Albon, the best in the world, still on his heels. We have a potential two-time champion in Robert Killian if he can make it through these last 2 obstacles without being caught. Ryan Atkins, the last man who has a chance, only 35 seconds back now. There's a run through the festival village, there's a Herc hoist, and that is it. Robert Killian, 1 obstacle away from his 2nd world title.
Killian, the Green Beret, the Army Ranger, and he lives by that creed. He arrives at the cutting edge of battle by land, by sea, or by air, and accepts the fact that he's expected to move further, faster, and fight harder than any other, and he is doing that today.
Robert Killian is moments away from making history. All that stands between him and his world championship, this one final obstacle, the Hercules hoist. He must be careful, not just to complete it, but to not drop the bag as it comes back down and receive a careless 30 burpee penalty.
And a sign of respect right there, being chased by Spartan OG and world champion in his own right, Isaiah Vidal, right beside him to cheer him on in this last obstacle.
Robert Killian is about to hit this Hercules hoist, the last big stretch, and right behind him, Ryan Atkins giving chase. This is gonna come down to the wire. Robert Killian using that leg strength, just a few more pulls.
Every bit of upper body strength and leg strength he has to use right now. He has to show poise and make sure he doesn't drop it, or it will be 30 burpees.
He's got it to the top, and he's lowering down with control. Ryan Atkins coming into the obstacle as Robert Killian cheering, knowing victory is his. Ryan Atkins desperately trying to gain on him, but Robert Killian is going to win his 2nd world title, the first and last year's in Tahoe. Robert Killian across the line, your winner on the day.
Throwing up 2 fingers for his 2nd world championship, down in prayer and exhaustion, raises his hand to the sky, and he is just exhausted as his wife Maxine puts the medal around his neck and embraces him.
The 2019 Spartan Race World Champion is Robert Killian.
Draped by his wife and in the American flag.
And right behind him, Ryan Atkins, 2nd place for the 5th time. He'll have to wait at least 1 more year to win a world championship. But what a race from Robert Killian, and what a race from Ryan Atkins. They both gave everything they had.
By Ryan Atkins just being out here today is just proof that he's one of the greatest endurance athletes in the history of the world.
Look at how spent he is. He couldn't have pushed for another step. Both of these athletes absolutely demolished after that 2.5-hour effort. And this is Jonathan Albon going for another podium finish at the World Championships. A tough obstacle for him, the Hercules hoist, but he has made it to the top. He will be slow and deliberate on the control. And once again, your defending champion, no longer the champion, but 3rd place at the Spartan World Championships. Always a factor. He will regret that missed spear for the next year. But Jonathan Albon, another phenomenal day, 3rd place at the 2019 Spartan World Championships.
13.5 miles, 30+ obstacle, and they're separated by mere minutes.
Absolutely unbelievable showing from all these athletes here. We know that Aaron Newell is coming in next. Right now, Finishing time, Robert Killian, 2 hours, 11 minutes, and 54 seconds. Ryan Atkins, only 33 seconds back from him, and only a minute 13 back to Jonathan Albon. What a race as Aaron Newell coming into the home stretch. A 4th place finish from Aaron Newell is an astonishingly amazing finish for him.
What's astonishing as well is those are the 3 men that finished on the podium last year, and this year just in a different order with Atkins in the same place.
Yeah, they just flip-flopped Albon and Killian. But Aaron Newell, what a bright future he has ahead in this sport. It's incredible how far he's come and progressed in such a short period of time. He was a relative unknown at the beginning of this season. And now, about to cross the finish line in 4th place, he gave Ryan Atkins and Jonathan Albon everything that they could handle today.
Be proud, Aaron Newell. You ran the race of your life, and it took some of the greatest Spartan athletes in the history of the sport to beat you today.
It took 2 two-time world champions and a 5-time runner-up are the only people that beat this man today. What an incredible performance from Aaron Newell. And we know that next year, we're looking at a man who might be standing on the podium.
That's a lot of talent in one van.
Unbelievable, a lot of talent. Aaron Newell has completed the Hercules hoist. A proud and ecstatic Aaron Newell running things home. 4th place in the 2019 Spartan World Championships. He's one of the men who made the race today. He pushed 2nd place for 10 miles. And he'll have to settle for 4th, but it's in a proud and excited 4th, greeted by Jonathan Albon at the finish line.
And only Aaron Newell could do it while getting a kiss from a man in a blue onesie.
A great showing from Aaron Newell. Emptying the tanks, pushing towards the finish. And as we look towards the top 5 men, Robert Killian, your new 2019 Spartan World Championships, followed by Atkins, Albon, Aaron Newell, and Ian Hosek rounding out the top 5. With them, Steve Hammond, the 3rd member of our team.
Oh, Robert Killian, what a race out there. The podium has got away from you this season, but not at this race, and probably one of the harshest terrains and weather. Well, how did you overcome that, Robert?
I mean, it was just my day. You know, sometimes the chips just fall in your favor, and right at the spear throw, having both Woods and Albon miss, and I just nailed it. It gave me such a boost of confidence, but it was amazing. Thank you guys so much.
And back to the race course, because Nicole Mericle is not done yet. She is doing her best to seize the World Championship away from Lindsay Webster. She's watched Webster win the last 2, and she said, this year is my year. And right now, she is putting a gap between herself and Lindsay Webster that we have never seen an athlete do before.
And just used a beautiful example of the mantle shelf technique to get up that very snowy, very cold table before she got over the vertical cargo net. And going back to that, if you may, that throw by Woods, remember we talked about how he had to correct himself a little bit because the wind was blowing left to right. He threw it too far to the left, thinking that the wind would blow it back towards the middle, and it didn't work, and that's why he missed all the way to the left. The wind totally affected that throw in a way that we didn't expect.
Well, Nicole Mericle didn't miss her spear, although the other women in this race all did, and that gave her the opening that she needed to bury them. And right now, she is way out in front, chasing that world title and looking extremely comfortable doing so.
As good as this must feel right now, must be the most lonely she's ever felt in her life, knowing that the pressure of winning a world championship has always been on her shoulders, and now it is there for her for the taking, and the only thing that could ruin it for her is any of the mistakes she makes. It's her to win and also hers to lose. That's a lot of pressure.
It is a lot of pressure, and there's still a lot of miles to go. The question that we have to ask ourselves is, where's Lindsay Webster right now? Is she gaining? Does she have an opportunity to pull herself back into this race? And what is the battle for 3rd place right now? At the 8-foot box, Nicole Mericle came through in 1st position in 1 hour 38. Lindsay Webster now all the way back to 1 hour and 47 minutes. Rebecca Hammond, just 3 minutes behind her, has gained on her dramatically over the last few miles.
Thanks, man.
Miriam Bissett, 5 minutes back from Rebecca Hammond. So Hammond in a strong position to get back on the podium once again. Alex Walker a minute and a half behind Marion Bissett.
And unfortunately, I got some bad news. On the monkey in the middle, when Lindsay Webster was dismounting, she severely sprained her right ankle. Right now, not only is she going on what we believe is a bad left foot, she is now trying to continue the race on a bad right ankle with Rebecca Hammond breathing down her neck.
And now it's going to just be about grit and toughness for Lindsay Webster, powering through, trying to maintain this podium position with that bad ankle and that bad foot.
The report that she was actually on the ground, got up, started walking, fell down again, and was in agony against the fence and continued to go, had a difficult time making over to the 8-foot box. It must have gotten it because we now see her ascending up the hill, but look at the gap because Nicole Mericle has already done that and down at the hurdles only about a half mile before the sandbag carry.
Well, Nicole Mericle is absolutely flying right now, and she shows no signs of any fatigue, any weakness setting in. Lindsay Webster has got to continue to troop on because right now Rebecca Hammond has been gaining on her significantly.
Like Aaron Newell, it's not even a question right now whether Lindsay Webster may finish second. She might have to fight and battle just to finish this race. I mean, a podium might be completely out of the question at this point.
It's extremely possible. Lindsay Webster was 6 minutes ahead of Rebecca Hammond at the top of the mountain, and now at the bottom, that lead has been cut to 3 minutes, and there's still 6 miles left in this course. Absolutely, anything can happen.
And we've seen what Rebecca Hammond could do on this mountain. If Lindsay Webster is injured and Rebecca Hammond is breathing down her throat, how is she going to be able to fight her off?
Well, Nicole Mericle is closing in rapidly on the end of this race, pushing towards that sandbag carry. Once she gets there, she knows how close things will be.
At this point right now, if you could see how brutal this terrain is, any one of those stones, if she hits it wrong, she could severely wreck her ankles. She could hurt herself. She could fall down. She could get her hands wet. It could be disaster with one false misstep. So she has to take this, even though she has to take it fast, she has to be conservative. But anything could still happen, even on the trail.
Well, Lindsay Webster, you can see right here, powering through, trying to get back up to a running speed, even with that bum foot and that bum ankle. This is the sign of a champion, willing to push on through the agony, through the misery, and still closing in on that finish line. We saw Nicole Mericle hit mile 12. Lindsay probably about 3/4 of a mile back, maybe a half mile back right now.
There's one thing about a twisted ankle or a sprained ankle that is true. If you have the guts and the courage to run through it for another mile for about 10 to 15 minutes afterwards, and it's going to be hard for you to get the power to get up there, it will numb up and you will be able to run at a normal pace. You just can't twist it again.
This has got to be so hard for her because to leap off that ankle, so challenging. She's not able to get a good jump, which means she has to reach for one of those lowest pegs, one of those lowest holds.
Yeah, smart move to take the gloves off, though. She wasn't getting the grip that she could. She wasn't getting the dexterity. So take them off and then try to be able to grip that as best as you can, and she's able to get it. Once you get one, you're usually okay on this. She got a foot on one, and she's smooth sailing now.
But Webster needs to push right now. We know that Rebecca Hammond is closing and closing fast, and we would hate to see this great champion fall off a podium simply because she's not able to keep moving at the speed she'd like to.
Right now, it's like watching a unicorn who's injured its hoof. You know, like the most beautiful animal in the world that's all now injured, and it's not easy to watch, but it looks like she's gaining some steam again. But coming up to this wall, I will say that as good a rock climber as Rebecca Hammond is, in West Virginia, she did struggle on this a little bit. So it's going to be something to watch as she pulls up.
I think it's an obstacle that she definitely wasn't used to, that she learned a little bit at in West Virginia.
Did you get cold out there? Yeah.
But right now, this is Nicole Mericle charging towards that 13th mile where she'll find the sandbag carry. And from there, we know that sequence of obstacles that'll be the beater to the tire flip to the A-frame to the Herc hoist and then home for a world championship. She can smell that world title. It's been eluding her all these years, and now just over a mile from the finish.
Not to mention, she was either first or second in every major race this year against Lindsay Webster. But Lindsay Webster won the U.S. National Series. She beat Nicole at the North American Regional Championship in West Virginia.
In a race they ran head-to-head, side-by-side for 13 miles.
Until the very end. So for Nicole if she is able to pull off this win and this World Championship, it would extremely validate her entire season, not to mention some of the other events she beat Lindsay Webster at head-to-head. And this is just heart and guts right now. For Lindsay to be able to run down this hill, she's gonna have to brake. She's not gonna be able to run with that reckless advantage she had before. Any misstep here would be disaster. And she is trying to fight off Rebecca Hammond and European champion Miriam Bouisset.
Lindsay Webster closing in on the last big steep downhill. Once she gets off this, the hills will roll and be a little bit easier for her to descend on. You see how she's braking so much with her heels right now. She's working very hard to keep the pressure off her ankle and to keep the pressure off that foot. But when she gets a little bit flatter here, she's gonna be able to open up that stride again.
At this point, she knows how much race there is left. It's just about surviving right now and trying to maintain that lead. For the first time I've ever seen her, she must be running scared.
And it looks like Nicole Mericle is about to emerge out of the woods. We can see the Squaw Valley Festival area off in the distance. She's so close, she'll begin to hear the music soon. And that will tell her that she is about to reach that finish line. The sandbag carry is coming up next at the bottom of this hill, mile 13.
What she'll be able to do there at every Spartan event is she will be able to gain energy from all the people in the crowd cheering her on. And the cheers she's gonna hear from being the first female to come out at this event in a position where she is slaying it and actually spoiling Lindsay's quest to be the three-peat world champion is going to be thunderous, as well as, and here we go, we got Rebecca Hammond
is into the pipe layer. Rebecca Hammond, again, an obstacle that she has not done a lot of times. She's been out for most of this year. It's a relatively new obstacle. So for her, a little bit tentative as she works her way through it. Not as much a failable obstacle, it's just something that's a little awkward and weird the first time you do it.
And to go back to your point with the armor and the Tyrolean traverse, it's just something that makes your hips move in positions that you don't want to this late in the race and can cause some cramping.
Well, Nicole Mericle has made it to the sandbag carry. 300 meters up, 300 meters back, and she will be very relieved when this one is over.
And there's those cheers we were talking about. We love you. The encouragement.
The exact place that you need to hear something like that. At the bottom of a sandbag carry, 13 miles into a freezing cold mountain race. Nicole Mericle is on her final ascent up any incline at all. This is it right here, about 300 meters up the side of this mountain, and then everything will be flat and downhill the rest of the way.
I mean, let's put this into context here. You've worked your entire running career, your professional career, your entire life with the dreams of calling yourself a world champion. Now you could see the festival area where that first place goal is sitting right in front of you, and all you have to do is continue to grind for a little bit longer as the champ who knows all about winning is coming down the hill. She's hurt, she's hobbled, but she has heart, and she is not giving in.
If you're just joining us, you are watching the final miles of the 2019 Spartan Race World Championship. You're looking at defending champion Lindsay Webster running for her life right now to try to earn a three-peat. Never before happened, 3 championships in a row, but in order to do so, she has a ton of ground to make up on her main rival, Nicole Mericle, who has led this race from wire to wire so far.
This is Ali and Frazier in the OCR version.
And Rebecca Hammond basically death marching up this climb right now, trying to hold things together. She's had a rough day, but she's so close to getting through the last of the mountains.
Yeah, Rebecca Hammond has done 90 burpees up to this point and still hanging on and still has a shot of running down Lindsay Webster, which is incredible to think that she's failed 3 obstacles and still in podium position.
Well, Hammond is one of the most dangerous athletes in this field. We know she took second place in West Virginia at the North American Championships last year, and then came in here and took second place in the World Championships, beating Nicole Mericle.
And she did that in her last year of Harvard Medical School.
Unbelievable. And now she was able to focus on things a little bit more this year, although the injuries have taken a toll. I'd look towards next year for her to be a contender to potentially even win the overall. We saw her finish third at the North American Championships on minimal training as compared to her competitors.
She had one training race in Boston leading up to the North American Regional Championship, and then went out there and was able to take a comfortable third. And today she's just hanging on for dear life and grinding like every other athlete out there today. It has just been who could survive as opposed to who could run fast for the most part.
Nicole Mericle is blowing by all of these elite men. No problem at all, doesn't look fatigued in any way, just deliberate and concentrated, just as we saw Robert Killian in this exact same position. And this is Rebecca Hammond making her approach into this modified stairway to Sparta, trying to get vertical leap to get that pop and get up to that handhold. It's extremely hard when your legs are fatigued, possibly calf cramping when you try and jump this far into a race. Very hard, as you can see other people struggling as well.
The cold water, the fatigue of 90 burpees, hands that have been put in the water from all those burpees have got to be affecting her right now. And if you can't get the spring in your leg, you can't do this obstacle. And she almost had it there.
Very close. As you can see, the men that were nearby from the heat in front of her, when they charged, they got some push off the wall when they planted that foot. Hammond was not getting any push off that foot when she planted it on the wall. And now Lindsay Webster bombing downhill, trying to finish off her last little piece of this mountain.
As Nicole Mericle is now bombing down on the sandbag before Nicole's even gotten there. If she gets to the bottom of the sandbag and doesn't see her, she's going to know that the victory is well within her grasp.
This is really brutal to see
This
what's
is hard
going
to
on here
watch.
with Hammond. Looks like she's got that
got
solid
one.
grip. She's finally made it up to this thing.
She's a strong athlete and has the ability to do this, but you got to get a second hand and she misses.
Wow. So Rebecca Hammond is going to sit here and waste a ton of energy and time fighting this obstacle. And it's surprising because she is a rock climber. She does practice a lot, but the cold may be impacting her hands significantly. The fatigue of this day, you just don't have the strength that you're normally used to. Like that luxury of being able to lift your body up and grip by your hands just isn't there right now.
And this is a puzzle piece. You have to be able to run up, grab one with your right or your left hand, and immediately be able to grab the other. You can't put two hands on one block. It's just too difficult to do. She's trying it now, but now your hands get crossed up, and you can't make the reach to the next one.
Well, it looks like she's finally got those hands on there, but look, Marion Bissett has caught Rebecca Hammond now.
And that's the last obstacle you would think you would have to burpee out, but it would almost have made more sense. Rebecca is still struggling. She hasn't been able to make it.
Feet. She's not using her legs the way we need to in her grip. She's burning out that grip, trying to hold on as Miriam has made the grab, and now we have an incredible battle for the third podium position. Which of these women can get over this obstacle and surge away from the other, because they might be spending some time here.
Is it going to be who gets over the wall first or who does a burpee off at this obstacle? And we still have other athletes coming up behind them.
Well, Miriam has again grabbed that same hold, pushing to the second grip. This is the furthest she's made it. Look at her use those knees to climb. And once that foot is planted, Miriam Bissett has just made a huge pass on Rebecca Hammond, who cannot get those hands working.
Miriam Bissett has been trying to break through in this race for years, and for years she has struggled on obstacles. Last year, Rebecca Hammond was the breakthrough athlete here, but now Miriam has been able to get over a wall, something she would have had a very difficult time doing in the past, and now Rebecca Hammond has called it quits on that obstacle and is doing burpees with Miriam running into third place.
I mean, how many minutes did Rebecca Hammond just spend trying to get over that obstacle before taking that penalty?
A good minute and a half to 2 minutes.
And possibly more. That's like taking a double penalty on that obstacle. Look at this. Nicole Mericle has just one tire flip away. Now all that stands between her and her first World Championships, an A-frame cargo net and a Hercules hoist, and about a quarter mile of running. That's nothing.
Now it's a question of whether or not Lindsay Webster could hold off Miriam. Rebecca Hammond is down doing burpees, and Miriam Bissett, who has never done better than maybe fifth in this race, who always routinely did 90 burpees, is in the driver's seat right now for a podium.
Miriam Bissett at 46 years of age, still running with these 20-some-odd-year-old women. It's incredible that she's been doing this for so long at such a high level. But right now, the story of the day is this woman right here, Nicole Mericle, descending down. Only one obstacle between herself and the finish line, and that is the Hercules hoist. And now she can taste it. A world championship, so close.
And just a few short years ago, Nicole Mericle was even questioning whether or not she wanted to stay in Spartan race. The heavy carriers are getting heavier, and she didn't feel like she had the strength. And here today, she has shown as much strength, grit, and courage as any other athlete out there. And here she is sprinting down the last stretch to the last obstacle before the finish line of the 2019 Spartan World Championship.
Nicole Mericle has always had all the tools. The question is, could she put it together at the highest of levels? This was her most consistent year, all year long, running phenomenally, winning the first 2 races for the U.S. National Series, finishing the next 3 in second place, finishing second in the North American Championships. Everywhere she went, she was toe-to-toe with Lindsay Webster. But today is the day that she steps out of Lindsay Webster's shadow, because Nicole Mericle is just a couple pulls away from becoming a world champion. And Nicole is at the top, and as she lowers this bag down, she knows that she has it. Savor this moment, Nicole Mericle, because you are the 2019 Spartan Race World Champion Nicole Mericle, dominating here in Tahoe.
That van life and Aaron Newell is going to be even more special today. First place for Nicole Mericle, 4th place for Aaron Newell, both from America, both representing. Congratulations, Nicole.
And Nicole Mericle doesn't even look tired as she comes across that line, unlike the men in front of her. But here's Lindsay Webster, 2nd place. She'll have to settle for it. No trifecta this year, but an amazing showing from an injured Lindsay Webster, still taking 2nd. And Miriam Bassett with that pass of Rebecca Hammond right before the finish. 3rd place for the French woman. So ecstatic for her as well. Rebecca Hammond will have to settle for 4th after an injury-plagued season, but what a year from her as well.
What an effort for a champion.
For Rebecca Hammond. And your top 5, Nicole Mericle, your new 2019 Spartan Race World Champion, followed by Lindsay Webster, Miriam Bassett, Rebecca Hammond, and Alex Walker. With Nicole is Steve Hammond.
Well, Nicole, you're known for the flat and fast courses. This is certainly not flat nor fast, and in absolutely horrific conditions. Describe that to me and the victory. World champion, girl.
Yeah, you know, I think in the 2 weeks leading up to this race, I've been the most nervous for any race in my whole life. And I was so worried about the weather, and I know everyone's experiencing the same conditions, but you want to be like as prepared as you can. And so I just, even like an hour before the race, I was going back and forth on, do I wear my raincoat? Do I wear my windbreaker? I don't know. And thank you. Yeah, so the whole time I was kind of like in just like shock that I was in the lead by so much, and I just kept on, you know, thinking like you just got to keep going and stay warm. And yeah.
At what point on this like crazy course did you think you had it in the bag?
You know, I didn't think I definitively had it, I guess, until the sandbag when I finished it and I still didn't see anybody, and I knew there was only beater, A-frame, and Hercules left. Just because you never know how Lindsay can barrel down a mountain, or you know, Rebecca or anyone for that matter. So yeah, I was running scared the entire time.
Well, this is amazing. Well done, Nicole. Very well deserved. Today's women's world champion. Unbelievable. Back to you guys.
Well, thanks a lot, Steve. And looking over that podium, Miriam Bassett, Lindsay Webster, and your 2019 world champion, Nicole Mericle. And on the men's side, Jonathan Albon, Ryan Atkins, and Robert Killian, the same 3 men on the podium as last year, but this time a different order. It's been an incredible 2019 season from Lake Tahoe. We will see you in 2020.